Call to order the April 5th, 2022 meeting of the North Andover Planning Board. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting of the North Andover Planning Board will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Specific information, the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, in-person attendance of members of the public and board members will be permitted. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting live may do so on their television by tuning to Comcast Channel 8, Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam.org. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time by technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceeding as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in public hearings but not attend the meeting in person, please email your question or comment prior to or during the meeting to Jean Enright at jenright@northandoverma.gov. The question or comment will be read during the proceedings and responding to accordingly. Could we take roll, please, since we're partially remote?
Kelly Cormier.
Kelly, can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Here.
Here and attending remotely. Alyssa Koenig.
Here.
John Kevelin.
Here.
John Simons.
Here.
Eitan Goldberg.
Present.
Peter Boyden.
Here. Okay, we are going to start with continued public hearing, which will be 0 Stevens Street, Trustees of Reservation. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to read the order again?
Not particularly.
I didn't think so.
So this public hearing will also be held via remote means and in person with the same provisions that I literally read 15 seconds ago. Yeah.
Okay,
good
so
for now.
this hearing opened at your last meeting. It was continued to this meeting with the request to draft a decision. The Conservation Commission has issued an order of conditions for the proposed Barrens habitat management. The draft decision is included in your packet, as well as the presentation that was presented at the last meeting. We have Jeff Denacor, representing the trustees, participating remotely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the call. I'm having a little trouble hearing, but I can lean into the computer.
Okay, thank you. We can hear you well. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right,
Just
so
sometimes on some people, I think their microphone is just a little tough to hear.
Okay, so everyone just make sure to bring your microphones nice and close and speak into them. Okay, do any members of the board have any additional questions or comments regarding this watershed special permit? I see none. Kelly from Remote World, anything?
No.
Okay. Are there any other public comments that have come in?
There are not.
Okay. Anything from the applicant, from the trustees that want to be said?
No.
Okay. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing as to 0 Stevens Street, Wire Hill, Trustees of Reservations?
So moved.
Motion made. Can we get a second, please?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor of closing the public hearing. We'll do a roll call vote. Kelly?
Aye.
Alyssa?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
I vote yes. Peter?
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing is now closed. We will now review the draft decision.
Gene, 4B, there's a typo at the end of the sentence, fire history rather than
Yep.
fir history.
Thank you.
Just since it's the trustees, they might think you're referring to the fir
fir.
tree.
Thank you.
Is there a requirement of who does the controlled burn? Because I know they talked about who was like going to be responsible for it. And as I recall, the fire department said that they were comfortable with that particular entity doing that.
Yep, and so I conditioned that the entire application is considered part of this decision, and so
Okay.
that laid all that out.
Okay.
It is really hard to hear everybody. It just sounds like it might truly be a volume issue.
Okay. All right, so the question was, do we know who's performing it, and conditioned for them to perform the work? And the response was, the decision conditions the entire application set, which does include that information. It's a little unique, because usually we're conditioning the plan gets built according to the plan. We're really conditioning here the application, which includes the O&M plan and all the best practices.
Okay. Other than Peter's amendment, does anyone else have any amendments they'd like to suggest? Okay. Hearing none, could we get a motion to approve the watershed special permit as amended?
So moved.
Motion made to approve the watershed special permit as amended. Could we get a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Kelly?
Aye.
Alyssa?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Peter?
Aye.
And I vote yes. Okay, that is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Gene, so let me know when someone's here for 221
Yep.
Brentwood Circle. We'll just
You
keep
want to
moving.
just continue the public hearings for 1450 and 1600?
Yeah, so we're going to continue. 1450 has asked for a continuance until April 26th, so that'll be continued until April 26th. 1600 Osgood, the same, has requested continuance until April 26th, so we'll continue that until April 26th, 2022. Okay, let's go to 505 Sutton Street, Alex Loth, Sutton Street Redevelopment LLC, request for determination of insubstantial change to allow for dog park for resident use only and a pergola in the amenity area directly south of Building 1.
Thank you. I shared a plan of this, these two small changes to the development. Through Jean, she requested that it come before the board so you can make the determination. Basically, in fine-tuning the design of the project as we go through it, we added a couple of things to the project that we think really enhance it for our future residents, which anecdotally looks like there may be many North Andover residents moving there, as I've been getting phone calls from people who are interested in the project, which is really exciting. So you can see on the screen here, in the sort of southwest portion of the site, we're proposing taking an area that was adjacent to the parking, adjacent to one of our residential buildings, and creating a small dog park for the residents' use. It's a permeable surface there that doesn't, I'm told by my civil engineers, doesn't affect the water runoff on the site. Enables people to enjoy a place to have their dogs play, walk, etc. We've got a wash down area for it. We've got a trash receptacle there, etc. A little bit of lighting as well, and we think it'll be a nice amenity there. The other piece is we have a patio area at the south side of Building 1 for the residents' use, and we were looking at that and kind of deciding the furniture and this and that, and the pergola idea came up because that is on the south side of that building. We'll get a good amount of sunshine there, and we thought it would be nice to have the ability to have a little bit of shade and just make for a nicer area for the residents to use. I actually hesitated on even putting that through as an insubstantial change. I wasn't entirely sure what the board needs to see, doesn't need to see in terms of a change, but better to show you everything and answer any questions you may have rather than have someone be surprised as we move along and finish the project.
Can you orient us or someone
Sure.
what we're looking at?
Yeah, I probably should have
Where
sent
does
along
this fit in?
Sure, I should have sent along an entire site plan of the project as well. But where you're looking at this right now, the top of the screen would be the building that parallels Sutton Street, right along Sutton Street. We call that building number 1. So to the left-hand side is the main entrance that comes in between that residential building and the senior center that's being built. On the right-hand side, what you see is a retaining wall and the driveway that goes into the underground parking of that building. So to the right-hand side here on this image would be the China Blossom, obviously off-screen. So that kind of orients you as to this building. You're basically looking north towards the airport. So all of this area is a landscaped and/or patio area for the residents' enjoyment, and what we're doing is adding, in addition to the seating, the fire pit, et cetera, that was already there, we're proposing to add a patio to it. Oh, thank you, Jean.
So, yeah, if you could speak to this one. This shows
Sure.
Building 1, which is the one along Sutton Street, and Building 2, which is behind the China Blossom.
Right. So the China, again on this image, the China Blossom is to the right. Sutton Street would run along the top of the screen. The entrance between our development and the senior center is on the left-hand side. So if you look just below Building 1, you'll see there's a walkway and a patio area there, and that's where we've fleshed out the patio and added the pergola to it. This is a somewhat older image because it's lacking the patio area that is going in on the south side of Building 1. But hopefully that orients you as to the location. So just below Building 1 is what we're talking about.
Can
Where
we-
the SSA is that
Above that, yes.
above that?
Because that retaining wall there now curves around below where that SSA is.
Can you orient where the dog park is? I think that's the
Yeah,
more.
so I have a locus for that as
Sure.
well.
So lower left-hand corner of the site, southwest corner of the site is where you are. Building 3 is there, the residential building with 3 stories. Surrey Drive is off the bottom of the plan here. So this small area off of the parking and adjacent to Building 3 is where we're proposing the dog park.
What's planned to be that, without the dog park, what's there? Is it just open grass?
Just a grassy area, yes.
And remind us again what's between that and the Surrey Drive. There's a fence and then the trees.
There's an existing fence there, and on the landscaping plan, there's some amount of landscaping between the existing fence and our property, and that landscaping can remain there. So what the dog park entails is a small retaining wall, because that, as it is now, or as it is planned now, that ground slopes towards that existing fence. And so in order to level it out, there's a small retaining wall that would be put in there. And then the landscaping that's on the plan that doesn't change, the trees that are there, and then the existing fence.
Is there fencing around the dog park?
Yes, there is.
How high?
I'm sorry, Eton, the volume is still getting really low. There's something going on. I can hear, but it's really hard.
Is this better, Kelly?
That is better, but
All right.
it's not just one person, it's multiple, so I don't know if there's something going on with the volume levels.
I'm not sure there's what we can do about that at the moment.
Okay. We'll keep trying.
Okay, so fencing height?
Yeah, I was checking to see if we had put it on the plan. It's a 5-foot tall fence.
Are there hours for the dog park?
We haven't proposed any hours for the dog park at this point. I'd have to check and see what sort of a standard practice is on that.
But the application material did suggest limit it to residents only and have signage associated with that.
Right.
So I think one of my concerns here is that, that grassed area is something I think we had discussed in terms of what kind of buffers would there be between a large building and a residential neighborhood. And this would now use the buffer for a purpose which I think would work out great for the development, but I don't know that it would serve the purpose of a buffer with the residents. It's right up against the properties. So, I mean, I'm sure there's not a lot of places to put it, but to put it right up against the residential area just seems to run counter to the whole idea of, the assurances that there would be a buffer between their buildings and the property line.
Could you comment on the existing fence? Is that a privacy fence that's in between what you're proposing as a dog park and the abutters, I guess?
There's an existing fence that I believe is a 6-foot tall stockade-style fence there that I believe, belongs to the abutter
Okay.
along there. We did take a look at the distance to the adjacent properties because we thought the same thing that Mr. Boynton mentioned. We're over 100 feet from any of the adjacent properties with this dog park. I understand that we are obviously getting closer than we otherwise would, but we did take a look at that. And we did look at other places on the site for this as well.
Could I just ask a question there? You're 100 feet from abutter structures or 100 feet from abutter property lines?
Structures.
So how close are you to the abutter property line?
Looks like 8.
It's like 8 feet.
About 8 feet.
Yeah.
Let me ask this, how big was it again? What was the size?
Of the dog park?
Yeah.
Approximately 920 square feet.
So that's, like 30 by 30?
Roughly.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be clear, on the left of the dog park, that's part of Surrey? Because I thought the main part of Surrey was at the bottom. That's where I'm getting a little bit confused. Like, how many houses are there on the left? And are they residential, single-family residential?
Yes, so this abuts essentially, well, I guess you can see the property lines there, basically two, and I believe the first one above it there is the first house that abuts the senior center project, and then the next house. They're both single-family residences, they're both on Surrey Drive, because Surrey Drive comes down and then curves. So Surrey
Yeah.
Drive really does come around our property because it comes
Okay.
down and curves.
But I mean, to Peter's point, we spent an extraordinary amount of time during the approval of the project to ensure that there was proper buffering and landscaping and so forth. And it looks to me like what you're saying is there's not going to be any landscape buffer on that side of the property. In fact, it's going to go basically up to the property line for a use by the people that live there. I mean, am I right, or?
Well, the landscape buffer doesn't change in terms of the plantings that are going there. What we had was a slope going down to the plantings and the fence, and now what we have is the dog park coming out a retaining wall, and then the 8 feet that includes the landscape plantings. So the plantings along there are not changing from what was
But where are the
proposed.
plantings going to be? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Between the fence and the dog park,
8 feet?
yes.
And there's a retaining wall there?
There, we are proposing a retaining wall. In order to make that a level area for the dog park, we'd need I believe it's about a 3-foot tall retaining
I
wall.
guess I'm hard pressed to see how in an 8-foot strip you could put a retaining wall, landscaping, and then the dog park in there.
We're showing about 8 feet from the retaining wall to the neighbor's fence.
Let's assume they can do it, because that, and the landscaping is the same. I don't love it. I mean, I'm trying to think through the alternatives. Let's say you don't have the dog park here, which was the original plan. People could still walk their dogs there. They could still gather there, right? So, if this doesn't come to fruition, that doesn't necessarily mean that people won't walk and have their dogs there and stuff like that. But this obviously encourages that kind of congregation, which is I agree with Peter, it's a nice ability in a facility. But I don't know, it really seems awfully close. And I feel like if this had been as part of the original plan, I don't think we would have gone for it, given how much time and effort we put into changing things around and not putting things as close to that border. I mean, I think we went above and beyond in changing, that building from 4 stories to 3 stories because we were so sensitive of that. So I don't particularly love it, the idea, as an insubstantial change. I don't particularly love the idea in general. So that's my thoughts.
I think there's a huge volume consideration too, right? You have a concentration of dogs next to a butter's property, right? So.
Yeah. Okay. Pergola, that seems fine. I mean, that's interior. Seems like a good amenity. I don't see how that would have any impact on anybody other than the people there. Okay. So why don't we do this? Can I get a motion to make a determination that the pergola would be an insubstantial change?
Would we make the motion that we find that it is a substantial change? It
No.
would require,
So I think the pergola,
the pergola.
the
Yeah,
pergola
okay.
itself is insubstantial. So I think we can make that finding.
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, to be honest, I don't think we need to make a motion regarding the dog park. The request is for determination that it's insubstantial. So we can make a determination that it's not, or we can just leave it. But I think without a determination that it's insubstantial, they can't do it without coming back for a modification.
Yeah,
So-
sorry, okay.
So why don't we make a motion, we'll keep it simple. The motion that I would suggest is a motion to determine that the pergola in the amenity area only is, we deem insubstantial, directly south of Building 1.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so motion made that the pergola in the amenity area directly south of Building 1 is deemed insubstantial. Can we get a second?
Second.
Seconding. All right, vote. Kelly?
Aye.
Alyssa?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Peter?
Aye.
And I vote yes. All right,
One more thing for your consideration.
sure.
Thank you for your time. We did think through the sort of impact on the neighbors, and one of the reasons we did come up with the idea of a dog park is to help reduce any impacts on the neighbors, only because we know how many dogs are in most of these types of developments, ones we've built and ones that our management company has done in other places. We thought this would, in fact, help the neighbors, and that people are more likely to stay on the site with their dogs. And I think there's a little bit of a health impact to it as well, in that this is a designed system for dogs, and that's able to be washed down and cleaned. So there were a couple of thoughts in our heads, and we really did look around the site for other places to put it. So
Did
just
you-
one more
I mean,
point to consider.
I'm sympathetic to the notion that a properly designed dog park would be a good way to provide those benefits you said for a high concentration of dogs. But, I mean, you have experience that these developments have high concentrations, and it wasn't part of the plan, and this is just not a good location. So I like the idea of doing this, but I mean, there's no mitigation here for the proximity to the neighbor's property line other than plantings you were doing anyway when there was no concentrated use in the buffer line. Now you're concentrating a use in the buffer area and just the same plantings, and it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, let me say this, is that right now we're saying we don't deem it insubstantial. I think there's two potential ways that you could still maybe get there to the dog park. One, get the neighbors all on board and they say that they think it's a good idea and that they agree with you that it would be a betterment, then maybe it is insubstantial if all the neighbors agree. Or put in a modification, then they get notice and then they can come and we can hash it out here. But either way, because of the sensitivity of the location and what we've done in the past, I just don't think that it's not as clear-cut enough to be insubstantial. So I think there are ways you could get there, but I really want to hear from the neighbors. And if maybe they agree with you, but I'm not willing to say, I could definitely say that this would be a benefit. And I just think that's a little, a bridge too far at this point. So get them on board and then we can revisit it.
Understood. We'll do our homework.
Okay.
Thank you.
The engineer for 229 Brentwood is here.
Okay. New public hearing, 229 Brentwood Circle, Robert and Eugenia Hatch. Okay, let's do that.
Since it's a new one, do you want to read the record?
Oh, Gene.
I know.
Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this public hearing of the North Andover Planning Board, as well as any continued public hearings that are happening after this, will be conducted via in-person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, in-person attendance of members of the public and board members will be permitted. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting live may do so on their televisions by tuning into Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 26 or online at www.northandovercam.org. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceeding as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in public hearings but not attend the meeting in person, please email your question or comment prior to or during the meeting to Gene Enright at jenright@northandoverma.gov. The question or comment will be read during the hearing and responded to accordingly.
Thank you.
Hi.
For the record, my name's Jack Sullivan. I'm the project engineer. I'm owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group. And I'm here tonight with the owners, Robert and Gina Hatch. They've lived at this property for approximately 6 years. This lot was created in 1963. The existing home was built sometime in the mid-60s. And the Hatches are looking to put on a one-story addition on the southerly portion of their existing house. It'll be 660 square feet. There'll be 4 trees that need to be cut down in the area of the addition. They're all outside the 100-foot non-disturbance zone to the bordering vegetated wetland. The entire site's located within the 325-foot non-discharge zone. There's no work proposed within the 100-foot non-disturbance zone, and I did go out with the Conservation Department to get the wetland line verified, and they did verify the line. Also, I've had a bunch of back and forth with the town consultant in a productive manner, and we worked through any of the issues that they brought up in the stormwater management on this, but I can step the board through that. So for the stormwater management, we did do a soil test hole on site. We found suitable soils for recharge. We did find a high groundwater table. What we're proposing to do is we're going to collect the entire roof area of the proposed addition and a portion of the existing house. It'll be hard piped through roof drains into an underground Caltech recharge system. And I have an emergency overflow through a pop-up emitter that'll discharge into the lawn area for storms that exceed the 100-year storm event. You can see from the design plan, I show construction access points. They'll be utilizing the existing driveway. We show a soil stockpile area that's within our limit of work line, and we're showing a staked mulch stock with silt fencing to be established at the limit of work line for this project. There's really minimal disturbance. It's a smaller addition, and the site is already connected to municipal water and sewer services, so we don't have to do anything with that. And as I stated, I know the consultant did a review, and they were satisfied with the stormwater management on this. I can have Jean add anything that I might have missed.
Nope, it went through a series of 2 reviews, and she signed off that all her issues have been addressed.
What's the current size of the house?
1,950 square feet.
And adding 660?
Correct.
The drainage and filtration thing, that 2x6 thing, is that what you just talked about as the way to take the roof runoff? Is that what that is?
The 2x6.
Yeah,
says
the
prop drain.
rectangular thing, it just, when I first saw it, I said, oh, is that a septic system?
Yeah, right, that's the underground infiltration system. So it's 7.5 feet wide, 46 feet long. It looks like a septic system.
Yeah.
They're infiltrators, they're the arched
Yeah,
Caltech units. So they can withstand traffic loads, so like if a backhoe or bobcat rides over it, they won't crush. But yeah, we use the same systems for septic as well.
yeah, okay.
So, given the high water table, is there going to be sump pumps in the full basement?
There's a sump pump in the existing basement now.
Okay.
We're not sure with the addition if they will require one or not. We're tending to think yes. As a safety precaution, I told them they probably should put one in.
Probably better safe than sorry.
Even, hopefully you don't need it, but you just have it in case you have some sort of storm. In the stormwater, the recharge system, we are sited 2 feet above the high groundwater table, so we meet DEP stormwater standards.
Eitan, just a comment here about the proximity to the lake. So this is about 1/3 of a mile as the crow flies to the lake where the country club is. It's also drains within maybe 400 feet of the house into a stream. I think it's Foamy Brook.
I think so.
And I don't have any problem with what they're doing, but when we finally got the analysis from DPW of lake testing. This was one of the brooks that had a spike in phosphorus draining into the lake. And that is not to say that it's attributable to this house, but it is likely attributable to these neighborhoods. And it's hard to say without further investigation what it is about the neighborhoods, but just as an example, it could be that maybe they're not following low or no phosphorus rules, and we know from the update to the lake watershed report that we have residents in areas like this, very close to this, who took the initiative to walk up to landscape contractors doing work and just casually asked, so what are the special rules you have to follow here? And every landscape contractor they talked to had at least didn't admit to knowing about any rules in those areas which are supposed to have low or no phosphorus. Now, if you look at neighborhoods all around the lake, this is the area that appears to be the source of some problem. It's not the burden of these homeowners, but I just want to sensitize to the board that when we condition to say, hey, there's phosphorus limits here, this is an area where it's problematic for the lake. Higher levels of phosphorus are dumping in, it affects the whole lake, and it affects the water supply. I don't have an answer for you, but I think we ought to be aware of it.
Well, it's something good to point out. So, we put in our conditions. We'll put something in our conditions, which is all we can do from our board about, well, there are two things we can do, right? One, we can put it in our conditions of what you have to do when going through with the permit, but having the homeowners and stuff here, tell your neighbors you came here, you had a good experience because you got your permit, but also the board has concerns about phosphorus getting into lakes, so just make sure that you tell if you have landscapers or if you're using things, that's your landscaper. So we're talking directly to the landscaper. So make sure you just be careful of what you're using. Just
low or no phosphorus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does the creek you're referring to run all the way to Shoal?
It goes into wetlands, and there's two creeks there, and I'm not 100% sure which one goes back to Smolock. But again, just to repeat myself, I am not suggesting that your house is the source. But what we did see was there's, 8 or 10 tributaries going into the lake, and one of them showed a dramatic rise. And so it's something to do in those neighborhoods, plural neighborhoods, that feed that particular creek, and it's concerning.
We've looked. We're getting signs to put in the area to tell people, hey, be careful of what you're putting on your grass and your lawns. This is a sensitive area, but you just happen to be the first people to come since we've been talking about this. So, and you won't be the last. So we're going to keep telling people because really our best tool here is education.
And as a reminder, we just did an educational mailer, not only to the residents in the watershed, but to the landscapers and the realtors as well. And that was just a month or so.
Can I ask the homeowner if you happen to see the mailer about living in the watershed?
It was a big postcard. It was this big.
With a big photo of the lake? We know that it's very difficult to get this information out, and I'm not trying to pick on you. It's very difficult. So if we just had everyone come before the board for a permit, we would have your undivided attention, but you're the first.
And
What I do read is the insert that comes, there's like a newsletter that comes.
Yes,
I read that regularly.
so do I.
I'm not suggesting that I didn't see your postcard.
Right. But the other audience that I'm speaking to here is the contractor. So we'll pick you off one at a time. No, you.
Me?
Yes.
I'm just the engineer.
Yeah, okay, engineer. We'll pick you off one at a time and let you know when you're in these neighborhoods,
Yeah.
we have concerns. So you've detailed what you're doing, but we need to take it very seriously.
I do.
but
In my
Jack-
designs, I do.
Yep.
no, well, I mean, Jack, you're here before us on actually a lot of these
Yeah.
watershed, which means you're doing a good job. And I think your plans always come really well prepared, especially with the drainage and the infiltration and the stormwater. So just, you know, again, if we can pass it along to you and you can tell it to the owners when you're talking with them, just, hey, this is something that they're going to talk to us about, to be prepared, and just know that, you know, just the more we talk about it.
I
the
try
better.
to step them through them, like I let them know you have to place a deed restriction on the property, limiting
Good.
what's put down.
Right.
And then if they ever sell the property, there's something in the chain of title to carry
Right.
to the new owner.
That's great. The other thing just to be aware of, in the event anybody else is listening, so I'm not just picking on you, but, you know, as the crow flies, you're about a third of a mile from the lake, and that's a pretty good distance for whatever's going in the ground to filter, right? Third of a mile. But you are much closer to the wetlands that feed a stream. So if you think of just putting a bobber in that stream, it's in the lake in minutes. So you're actually much, much closer than a third of a mile, because that brook drains your property and many others right into the lake. And I'm sure as the engineer, you're aware of that as well.
I am.
Okay, I'll stop.
Awesome. Okay, all right. Is there any public, I can't imagine there is, but is there any public comment for 229 Brentwood Circle? Or any other board members that want to make comments?
There's no public comment.
Okay. Can we get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion made to close the public hearing. Can we get a second? Seconded. All right, all in favor? Kelly?
Yes.
Alyssa?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Peter?
Aye.
I vote yes. All right, let's look at the draft decision.
Gene, where's the condition here on, do we
Fertilizers?
have a condition on things like fertilizer?
4G.
Ooh, good. Thank you.
And that's stated on the plan as well, so it's in two, it'll be a deed restriction and it's on the plan.
Great, thanks. Bottom of page 4.
Can we get a motion to approve the watershed special permit?
So moved.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor? Kelly?
Aye.
Alyssa?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Peter?
Aye.
I vote yes. Thank you for putting up with our education.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
Jack.
Is that bad?
No, it was good. It was good. We don't get the opportunity to really
Right.
directly talk to people like that very often, and I think it's worthwhile. And hopefully other people are listening for other reasons that,
I ended up with my neighbors.
please do.
Let me know if you have a neighborhood meeting.
Yeah.
We have a neighborhood email chain for both Bridal and Brentwood.
Wow, good to know.
You know, the one thing I was, as you mentioned, the postcard, the one thing I get all the time is True Green. You know, I mean, solicitations,
Yeah.
probably 2 or 3 times a month for
Yep.
not only True Green, but all of the lawn services. So
Right?
we'll certainly
Send them
spread
the
word.
postcard.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Where do we go next? Okay.
And thanks for being so careful how you're doing this. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Let's do Planning Board Community Preservation Committee appointment. So John is our Community Preservation Committee appointee. His term ends June 30th of this year. John, are you interested in continuing on in that role? He is. Can I get a motion to appoint, is it, how long's the appointment?
I
They go 3 hours, 3 years.
3 years.
Is it
I
3
think
years?
it's
3 hours.
3 hours.
3 hours, yeah, 3 hours. It feels like it, that's sometimes.
Well, I move that we appoint our lifetime preservation awardee to this post.
So a motion made to appoint Mr. Simon to the Community Preservation Committee for the next term. A motion made, can we get a second? Second. All in favor? Kelly?
Yes.
Alyssa?
Yes.
I'm going to have you abstain.
Aye.
I vote yes.
Thanks
All
for
right.
doing that,
Thank you,
John.
John. All right. Okay, so now we're going to go to continued public hearings, annual town meeting zoning bylaw amendment articles. Articles 27, 28, and 29. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to continue the public hearings as to these articles. We will take any public comments on those, have any discussions that continue to need to be had, if there's any new information, read any public comments that have come in. After that, we will continue those public hearings to our next board meeting date to keep them open. They will stay open until the town meeting, and we'll have them still open until then, just in case new information comes in. After that, we will go to the planning board report. The planning board report is a legally required document, so the zoning law requires for any zoning articles that the planning board have public hearings, which is what we've been doing, and then make a recommendation. The recommendation is to town meeting as to what the planning board is recommending or suggesting the town meeting vote. It has no authority to bind the town to anything. It's just based on hearing the facts, how a majority of the planning board feels we should recommend. Again, it's required by law. We will go through the articles from the warrant that we have not yet voted on and make a recommendation. We already did a recommendation on the inclusionary zoning, correct, Jean?
Yes.
So we will skip that one, but there are these ones as 28 and 29 as to the mixed-use overlay district, and then there are a couple of other ones that we'll also touch on, Articles 3, 4, 7, 8, and 15. After we make our recommendations, many of these go to the Select Board for their recommendation. Some of them will go to the Finance Committee, depending on if they have any financial aspects as well for their recommendation. All of those recommendations then go in the warrant, and ours go into the Planning Board report, and will be there for people to review at town meeting, where those who come to town meeting will take a vote. So again, this is not the end of the process, but I would strongly recommend anyone who has interest in any of these articles come to town meeting so you can vote. If you're, for some reason, not a registered voter in time, I think that time has passed, but double check on that. But you can always come and speak if you want. But I highly recommend coming to town meeting, because that's where the decisions actually get made. So that's our process for tonight. Okay, so let's go to,
So, John, if I could
Yes.
just interrupt.
Please.
So I included in the draft warrant article for tonight some red line edits, and they're really housekeeping. It's moving some of the permitted uses that were listed in Subdistrict 3 into Subdistrict 2, and deleting them from 3. And so-
okay, so let's go, let me say which ones we're doing, then go through that, please,
Okay.
for us. And then we'll do comments. Okay, and when we do make our recommendation, I'll give anyone who wishes to speak on their recommendation a chance to do so. The members who are voting, you don't have to say why you're voting a certain way, or what you've been thinking about during this year-long process, but I want to give everyone the opportunity, as well as I'll kind of just talk a little bit about the process in general and how we come to a vote, okay? All right, so Article 28, amend the zoning. So first, let's do Article 27, amend the zoning bylaw to establish an inclusionary housing requirements bylaw. Jean, have there been any public comments to come in on that?
They have not.
Is there anyone here today who wishes to make a comment about the inclusionary housing bylaw? No. Is there any members of the board that wish to make any additional comments about the inclusionary housing bylaw? No. Fantastic. Okay. I think everyone's strongly in support of that. That will be a 2/3 vote at town meeting, and I hope that everyone supports that. Okay, Article 28, amend the zoning bylaw to establish Article 19, mixed-use overlay district. Article 29, amend the zoning map to town of North Andover. All right, so Jean, why don't you tell us changes that you've made to the red line?
Okay, so in the permitted use section of the bylaw, under Subdistrict 2, we had listed multifamily dwelling, including age-restricted housing. At one time, that was in Subdistrict 2. It's been moved to it was in 3. No, I'm sorry. It's in 3 now. It was in 2. And so this deletes it from 2, and it moves it to 3. And I changed the term to be multifamily residential use, as that's the term that's defined in this bylaw. So rather than multifamily dwelling. Assisted living units and facilities are not proposed in Subdistrict 2, so I've deleted that. And although we had dormitory, we had the nonprofit educational uses included in Subdistrict 3. So I moved it from 3 to 2 and listed it as dormitory, including nonprofit educational uses as defined by Mass General Law 40A, Section 3. And so you'll see the corresponding deletes out of Subdistrict 3 for dormitories and nonprofit educational uses.
And does this now match the current map, which is in Article 29?
As far as I'm aware.
Okay. That's the
I went
idea.
through it a number of times, so.
Okay. Okay.
And in addition, in the explanation box, it now references the map amendment is associated with this article and vice versa. So each explanation refers to Article 28 and 29.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, let's do it, there's not as many people here today, so I only see a couple members of the public that are here today. So I'll open it up to public members who are here today first, and then I'll read if anyone wants to, again, you don't have to, and then I'll read public comments that have come in. So anyone here want to make any comments? George.
George Kaler, 41 Quail Run. Excuse me. I would just like to make a brief comment. I believe most of the comments you've heard have been negative, and I would like to make a comment in favor of this development. As you, I'm sure, are aware, this touches a lot of boxes within the master plan. Master plan calls for high-density mixed-use developments along key commercial corridors. This is a high-density mixed-use development along 114. It recognizes the master plan recognizes the need in North Andover for various kinds of housing, in particular senior housing. In other words, opportunities for seniors to downsize. It recognizes the need for affordable housing, housing that's affordable to people that earn less than 80% of the area median income. And then also moderate rentals. Maybe people make more than 80%, but not a lot more. According to, or the statistic in the master plan is that almost half of all the renters in North Andover pay more than 30% of their income in rent. And 30% of income is the generally accepted guideline for housing costs. In other words, if you're paying more than 30%, you're struggling or you're making sacrifices someplace else. Also, the master plan encourages public transportation. But with over 1,000 units proposed, this has to be an attractive target for the MVRTA. And also the master plan calls for improved stormwater management, and that's part of this plan. So the plan touches a lot of bases in the master plan, which is why I'm in favor of it. And then I'd like to make one other comment. It represents a kind of community that we don't currently have in North Andover, a walking community. A community where people can live, and then also they can walk to buy food, buy drink, buy sundries, and then also it has access to jobs and access to public transportation. Excuse me. And it offers convenience to bicyclists. These are other aspects of this project that I think are very attractive to North Andover, and that's. And also the walking community is a type of community that is proving popular in other communities. And presumably, or I think that would be popular in North Andover also. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Hi, Laura Craig Coleman. I live at 58 Fernwood. And I've been at, I think, all of these hearings, maybe not of the first few. And I think there's a lot that's been made of the density of the project, and that being a negative to the project. But I think that maybe what we're losing in that is that density is also diversity. and that density can be accessed for many instead of what the current use is, which is access only for the individual residents who live in this multifamily housing unit that currently exists. I also think that density is leverage. So we've gotten, as a town, what I understand from the joint select board and planning board meeting from almost a month ago, gotten a very good development agreement that offers significant amounts of money. I believe it was like $10 million to the town for improvements on some of the very things that people were concerned about: traffic, schools, things of that nature. And that's on top of the stormwater mitigation and things that are already built into the plans. You don't necessarily get opportunities to get that kind of buy-in from developers in smaller piecemeal developments that are approved over time. So I think one of the things that was brought up is that over the past 10 years, in individual projects, probably the same amount of change has been allowed in multiple different areas as this one would be for the next 10 years of its development. And I think that it offers up an opportunity to solve some of the problems that we talked about. So we talked about needing possibly a new school because of this. Apparently, we already need a new school. If you look at the facilities plan that's going to come up at town meeting, it's already in the works. We need it now. And Kelly brought up a number of issues in her children's schools. I heard about all of the problems that need to get fixed, and I said, that sounds scary to me. It sounds like a lot of Prop 2.5 overrides. It sounds like a lot of money being spent, and having $3.5 million, which I think was the development agreement, going towards a specific school project, and taking that off of the facilities master plan taxable, budget feels very good to me. With a lot of other things in that development agreement that I think specifically address some of the concerns that we've talked about. So just sort of in a bird's eye view sense, I think that it is always a little bit scary to look at something that's not yet developed and say there's a lot of things that could go wrong with this, but I see a lot of things that could go right with this, and a lot of things that North Andover needs and deserves.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, one more. A newcomer, maybe?
Hi, Eric Freilich, 87 Sugarcane Lane.
Eric?
I came here tonight because I wanted to speak in favor of the project, and I think I bring a little bit of a unique perspective to this because I'm a practicing real estate agent. I'm a licensed broker, have been practicing real estate, both commercial and residential, involved in development for the last 21 years. I've been in town, my wife and I have been in town for about 29 years. We've seen the development of many things. When we moved in, Stop and Shop wasn't here. Butcher Boy wasn't here. There's been a whole lot of development, great development that has gone along in this town for many, many years, but there's also been some missteps over the course of the years. No offense, present committee. Okay. We've done things and anticipated things, and some things we got right and some things we got wrong. I've done business personally, commercial-wise, and residential in 94 different towns, so I'm exposed to a wide variety of development and how towns are growing and approaching these problems. And I have to tell you, this is probably one of the best thought-out development agreements that I've seen. And I'd just like to highlight some of those things, if I may, just from my unique perspective. Sorry, got to get my glasses on. I think as the two people before me were kind enough to mention, there's somewhere in the magnitude of $9.2 million of direct benefit to the town. That's cash that's being handed to the town of North Andover that the town of North Andover doesn't have to go source from somewhere else. To me, as a paying taxpayer, having paid many hundreds of thousands of dollars in real estate taxes over the years, that's a welcome sign to see that come in. Even better is the fact that it helps that some of those funds help us to accelerate the master plan, particularly the school master plans, by as much as 10 or more years. So I think it's well worth looking at and understanding that benefit. From a housing perspective, it offers housing for 40B. And helps us to achieve that threshold that 10% threshold that the town is looking to get. It helps us to identify senior housing for people, sorry, Eva, that like my wife and I, we're going to be downsizing soon, but we want to stay in town. What's the affordable, what are the options for us to do that? It's adding open space. We've done a great job in managing open space. Preservation Committee in particular has done a great job over the years. This is just another feather in the cap. If you can add, I think it's somewhere in the magnitude of 15 acres plus of open space. It reduces the number of, two-thirds of the units that are proposed are going to be two-bedroom or less versus what is existing there now. And my fear for us is that if this doesn't get approved, what's the alternative for that site going forward? And how is that site going to be used? And can another developer come in under 40B and give us a project that isn't as kind or as beneficial to the town? And if we don't put this project forward, my understanding as well from looking at the numbers is that this site is a net negative cost to the town on an annual basis. We're looking at the possibility of this site generating anywhere from $2 to $4 million annually. Okay? I think that there needs to be a lot of consideration by this board and the town members at town meeting for the financial impact, the positive financial impact that this project's going to have for the town, and all of the wonderful things that my predecessor said before me. The last thing that I'll mention in terms of how it impacts me professionally, I was here many years ago when our kids went into third grade and had 35 kids in class, and there was a town override, and I lost in that particular year when we had all those financial issues, I lost 4 or 5 real estate transactions because people didn't want to be in a town where the schools weren't attended to. People didn't want to be in a town that wasn't looking out for its growth. I think North Andover has done a wonderful job of correcting that from many years ago, and I think that this project alone will help not only to increase the walkability of it and give lots of people options, but it's going to do a lot to help the overall real estate value of the town, real estate values in town. I can cite any number of towns that are not doing things like this, and they're pointing to places like North Andover going, I wish I had that opportunity. So,
Can I ask you about that, Eric?
Sure.
Just while you have, because you brought that up, because one of the things that we've heard concerns about, and I think, especially from people coming from different backgrounds, it makes sense that this project is very different than anything else in
For
town,
sure.
and doesn't necessarily fit in or resemble what's already here in town. Now, I heard from George earlier, and I thought that was an excellent point. Maybe that's a good thing, right, that we have something different. But from a real estate perspective, having something different that doesn't necessarily resemble the rest of the town, do you see that as a benefit, a negative, a neutral?
well, I think you have to look at the overall project. I think it's a great question. The identifier for me is that this represents what I have seen, again, in different towns that aren't doing smart growth planning. This is smart growth planning. 1, it's phased in over 10 years. 2, it's addressing a number of different problems the town currently has or different things that the town wants to solve, in particular the schools. The one thing we learned about from that override 15 years ago or whenever it was that the values of the school have an immediate direct correlation to the values of real estate in town. And I think when you have something like this, if you look at some of the other projects that have gone around, there's some concern about, we're just willy-nilly developing this and developing that without that doesn't fit into the master plan or can be snuck in these little, either strip malls or things like that. I remember when Eaglewood Shops come in, and there was some big concern about that wasn't going to fit into town, and yet it's become a mecca for Burton's. I mean, the success of Burton's in that site is absolutely incredible. I think you're going to have some of the same things here, and now it makes it even more to George's point, that it's walkable. There's nothing walkable like that in town to a significant degree. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think, and from my perspective as a real estate agent, it's a significant benefit because there's amenities here. My background, my wife's background is the hotel business. We were in the food and beverage business, and the one thing we didn't like about North Andover when we moved in 30 years ago, there weren't a lot of restaurants, and there wasn't a lot of places for us to go without having to get in our car and go downtown Boston. It's happening now. This offers us a greater chance to do that. There's more retail options for us. I see it as a very, very positive aspect.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to read public comments that have come in. All right. First one is from Darlene Lundy. Hello, dear Planning Board. Hello, first allow me to introduce myself. My name is Terry Lundy. Sorry, Darlene was the email. My name is Terry Lundy, and I am a current resident of Royal Crest. I am writing to you to express why I am in full support of the Royal Crest redevelopment passing completely, allowing Trinity Financial to break ground. I am a longtime resident of this apartment complex. I have lived here with my family for almost 9 years, come this summer in July. However, this is actually my family's second time living here as we first, now it's working, as we first lived here in 2005 to 2006 in a different building. We then relocated to another town in 2006, but we enjoyed it here so much that we came back in 2014 and haven't left since. Our family has since grown and we have children within the school system, one of which is a special needs child, and we couldn't be happier with the education system. We love calling North Andover our home and living in this wonderful community of Royal Crest. It really is like our own private neighborhood. We have met wonderful staff here who we think are of his friends as well. Our children enjoy the close-knit neighborhood as well and have made wonderful friendships with fellow children. I have been following planning board meetings as well as in-person meetings at our clubhouse here in Royal Crest, as well as my mother who resides with me, as I am her caretaker. We are very involved when it comes to the community. I have seen amazing videos simulated to give us a vision of the future, as well as gorgeous posters to show us exquisite visions. To my way of thinking, there are many positive outcomes of this project. For starters, brand new buildings sound to be incredibly more efficient than our current buildings, which, let's face it, have lived their purposeful life. There are conditions here that need to be addressed. However, working with such old buildings from the 1970s surely does not allow sometimes for the repairs that are needed. It is very well could be that it would be much more efficient and even profitable to just start from scratch and develop new complex buildings that do not have mold issues and separate the student lifestyle from family lifestyle. I very much find the 40B program could actually be incredibly beneficial to many current families located at Royal Crest. We all come from different walks of life and everybody deserves nice things, especially working families. The new proposal also mentions this would be a more pedestrian-friendly area, which I think would be wonderful as we currently have no sidewalks within the apartment complex, which is why the benefits of a walking trail is lovely as well. With access to Franklin School, which has an amazing park the residents with children definitely enjoy. The retail aspect of this project also sounds very promising. Not only would it bring in more money to the town and small business, but also be nice to be able to take a leisurely walk directly from your home to one of these retail spaces, therefore not having to always use a car. Another one of my favorite parts of this new redevelopment is the fact that it will make it so that people with impaired mobility will have much easier ways getting around within their building. My mother is mobility impaired, and we live on the third floor, which has proven to be extremely challenging at times when there are no elevators in these three-story buildings. This is just how out of date these buildings are and not meeting current state and federal regulations related to accessibility. A few years back, there was some construction done within our complex to accommodate stormwater. However, unfortunately, that system did not quite meet its standards, and we were often inundated with floodwaters. It sounds like the new storm drainage plan for the redevelopment could very well rectify this issue. I understand some people's resistance to this proposal of the Royal Crest redevelopment. I know the change can be very hard, and it can be an automatic reaction for some people to balk at the idea. But let's not forget that some changes can be good, and others just don't realize it until they physically see it. Thank you so very much for your time. Have a lovely day. Best regards, Terry Lundy. All right. This is from Al Pertu. Hello. Just a quick message in support of the new Royal Crest project proposal. As a 15-year North Andover resident, I'm excited to see this project happen, offering numerous opportunities to our residents. Thank you. Well, that was a quick message. Thank you, Al. This is from Anthony Capichetti. Dear Chairman Goldberg and board members, chairperson, as a fairly new resident of the North Andover community, having moved to this town in 2003, I don't know if I consider that fairly new. 19 years, Anthony. An involved member of the community serving on the North Andover Conservation Commission, thank you, Anthony, since 2020, and a professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, providing design services for residential and commercial developments for over 20 years. I'm requesting the board vote a favorable recommendation of Article 29 for the upcoming town meeting. The Royal Crest project has great benefits to many facets of our community. Unfortunately, it has become a divisive topic for North Andover. As members of the Planning Board, you are charged with promoting both economic growth of the town and the enhancement of North Andover's quality of life. Article 29, the successful redevelopment of Royal Crest, will further these goals for the future of North Andover. Many people who have moved to our community have come seeking change to this town we love, some for the better, some for the worse. When my wife and I moved here in 2003, things were very different. The close-knit community with vast areas of open space has seen much growth from large, inefficient developments of sprawling homes and lawns. The loss of valuable open space, increase in housing costs, and dwindling housing supply continues to force the people who have made their homes and lives in the community to other towns. To preserve the character of our community, we must look to preserve its historic structures, maintain what is left of its open space, and focus change to projects that redevelop or reuse those areas and uses that are past their useful lifespan. The redevelopment of Royal Crest achieves many of these goals. The alternative to redevelopment is new development. Reuse of previously developed land preserves our open space and brings new efficiencies to what currently exists. The board has made tough but sound decisions in focusing redevelopment to the Route 114 and Route 125 corridors, as well as the preservation of the east and west mills and restoration of the, quote, new center with the addition of housing and commercial space at the former Bradstreet School. The board is once again faced with a tough decision, but through supporting Article 29 and the mixed-use rezoning of the Royal Crest parcel, the board will be making the right decision for the community, one that allows the town and the planning board to retain controls of the project as it advances. Failure to rezone the project may not end the project, but force the developer to seek alternative means to permit a less quotation mark friendly project to the community. These options include the use of 40B for up to 300 housing units or more staggered around safe harbor provisions, and or the use of Commonwealth's Dover Amendment for expansion of uses associated with educational and nonprofit entities such as Merrimack College, an entity that is not required to pay real estate taxes to our community. The redevelopment of Royal Crest offers our town many benefits, starting with the generous development agreement reached with the Select Board in March. The addition of affordable housing and age-restricted housing provides twofold benefits by allowing members of our community to remain and age in North Andover while also freeing up existing single-family housing upon downsizing. Beyond the economic impacts of the construction is the ongoing impact of increased commercial space in the community. Our town should look to expand our local meals tax to include a hotel tax through the local option room occupancy tax in the future to enhance the fiscal benefit from this project. Additionally, the success of Merrimack College is good for our community in many aspects. Merrimack students eat in our restaurants, shop in our stores, as well as work and volunteer in our community. Most importantly, every site that is redeveloped is a site that is not newly developed. This recycling of development is the best way to preserve open space as our community progresses. The proposed Royal Crest redevelopment also will preserve nearly one-third of the site as wooded open space, in addition to proposed active use open areas, including bicycle and walking paths, park, and a town common area. Further, the project recognizes the draining and flooding issues of the area, committing to provide additional flood storage and stormwater mitigation that alleviate existing municipal infrastructure issues of the town. It should be noted the development proposed under Chapter 40B are not required to improve existing infrastructure problems that are not solely related to the incident application. I respectfully request the board make the difficult but correct choice of supporting Article 29 as it moves forward for a vote by our community on May 17, 2022 at town meeting. It is sound planning and consistent with the town's master plan. Anthony Capiccetti, 55 Lyman Road. I'm now reading from Ian Burns. Good afternoon, Gene. I'm writing to express my strong support for the proposed overlay district and encourage the planning board to favorably endorse the article ahead of town meeting. I'm a lifelong resident of North Andover and currently work in regional planning, specializing in economic development. In my personal opinion, a project like the proposed Royal Crest development is exactly what North Andover needs to continue to grow its local economy. An adequate housing supply is an integral part of supporting the local business community. On a regular basis, I meet with employers in North Andover and across the region to help their challenges. It will come to no one's surprise that the number one concern expressed from the business community is a workforce shortage. This shortage is not only due to COVID-19, but to a number of demographic shifts in the region. Manufacturers in North Andover and our neighboring communities report that they are forced to reduce operations or fulfill orders in other parts of the country simply because they do not have enough workers. This workforce shortage is only made worse from the high cost of housing. If workers cannot afford to live in the area, they move elsewhere and our businesses suffer. In my opinion, it's not long before some of our manufacturers and big business start to follow these workers to areas of the state and country where housing is cheaper. If we want sustainable economic growth over the long term, we desperately need more housing to support our local workforce. We cannot risk losing our large employers and thus large taxpayers to other parts of the country simply because we do not have an adequate housing supply. Building more housing now will help stabilize the housing costs in the future. I implore the planning board to vote favorably on this article. Thank you, Ian Burns, 26 Dufton Court. From Michael Liss, I first want to thank the entire planning board on a thorough and extensive review process. Boards like these are an invaluable public service. I previously expressed my support for the Royal Crest redevelopment project, particularly when it comes to our financially stressed school system. While there has been extensive discussion of the of the development agreement and how it factors into the facilities master plan too, I want to call attention to the projected increased annual revenue. As we hopefully undertake the significant expansion of our schools, we will need to provide staff for the new and renovated buildings. This increased annual revenue from this project will be critical to our ability to quickly add teachers to our expanded classroom capacity, more than offsetting the cost of additional students. Again, thank you for your time and enormous effort. This is from Douglas Ludgen. Did I get that pronunciation right?
I think it's just Lund, right?
Ludgein.
Yes, Luncheon.
All right. Dear Ms. Enright and North Andover Planning Board members, thank you for your time and attention in weighing the merits of the Royal Crest redevelopment project and proposed zoning overlay. I'm writing to express my extreme support for the proposed redevelopment project, and I ask that you vote in favor of the proposed zoning overlay. As a former North Andover Zoning Board member, Board of Appeals member, 13 to 19, a registered architect, and resident since 2005, I am well versed and fully invested in the successful and smart growth of our community. The Royal Crest redevelopment project proposes increased density and mixed uses adjacent to our town's most cherished institution and the primary corridor of economic activity, 114. This is the perfect location in town for such a zoning overlay. These attributes of the redevelopment will greatly enhance the vitality and livability of both North Andover and Merrimack College. The diversity of mixed uses will fundamentally make the redevelopment the most appealing and livable place amongst all of the town's recent higher density developments. Once completed, it is my professional judgment that future redevelopment in North Andover will be measured against the substantial success of the Royal Crest redevelopment zoning overlay. Walkable mixed-use communities are the future. Please vote in favor of North Andover's future. All right. A couple more. This one is from Brian and Julie Roach. We are writing to you today to voice our support for the proposed redevelopment of the Royal Crest property. Our family are 15-year residents in North Andover. At 15 and 13 years old, our children are on the home stretch of their North Andover public school careers, having started at Atkinson and now working their way through North Andover High School. We volunteer extensively through the community organizations such as the NA Student Enrichment Council, Boy Scouts of America, and the Community Preservation Committee. Like each of you, we are deeply invested in the future and quality of life for all North Andover residents. We believe that the contemplated mixed-use redevelopment of the Royal Crest property represents a tremendous opportunity to further enhance the community we choose to call home. The size, location, and access to infrastructure are key factors that make this project so unique for Greater Boston. We are extremely fortunate to even have the opportunity to find and reimagine what the future of North Andover can be. Very few communities ever get that chance. By approving the mixed-use zoning, we can seize upon this moment to advance the Commonwealth's goal of creating more housing, all while getting community amenities such as boutique retail, restaurants, and passive recreation, all a process that keeps the town in control as a major stakeholder with a well-contemplated development agreement. We've also been very impressed with developers' willingness to work with the town in reducing density, improving setbacks, and focusing on a design that will fit our community, not overwhelm it. The goodwill shown bodes very well for a future relationship with the developer. As development proposals came forward for the former Lucent facility, North Andover residents were patient and knew when to ask and seize upon the right opportunity. Throughout this lengthy process, it's become apparent that this proposal is that right opportunity for Royal Crest. We urge the Planning Board to approve the mixed-use overlay zoning. Brian and Julie Roach. Last one. Good afternoon. I'm writing to tell you that I am a director of Butter and I support the redevelopment. That's from Chris Royal. Short and to the point. Thank you, Chris. Okay.
One has come in, Nathan.
Okay.
Should I add it to the packet? You want me to read it?
Is it added already?
Yeah. It's from
let
Andrea
me-
O'Donnell.
Let me refresh. Let me see if I got it now. Nope, I got it. Andrea O'Donnell, with Merrimack's recent purchase, will the planning board hold off on a recommendation regarding the Royal Crest development until Merrimack College purchase of 510, 530 Turnpike Street is added to the traffic study? If anyone wants,
That letter?
Can I expand?
Never mind, I got it.
I mean, that's something I want to know about, this, even though it's not directly part of the parcel, it's directly abutting, and it's one of the key parties to this proposition. And at the 11th hour, we're finally hearing about it. I just don't know what the story is now that's going to impact things.
So, Suzanne, you go. Yeah.
Or I can partially address it, not entirely, but I can sort of give you a little bit of background of how that has come about or how we have learned about that acquisition. So originally, when Melissa and I were meeting with Jeff Duggett, we had heard through an email that they were in conversation with 510 Turnpike Street for the acquisition of that property, and we asked him if they had a P&S signed, and he said that at that moment, or he said that there was no P&S agreement. And so we continued to negotiate the development agreement with them, the term sheet for that, and that was with the $1 million payment to the town over a 10-year period. And since learning about this acquisition of 510 and 530 Turnpike Street, Melissa has reached out back to Merrimack College, and they have offered an additional $650,000 to the town to be included into the term sheet. That offer is going before the select board on Monday night for a discussion. So that's sort of where that stands now. We were not aware of their intent or their purchasing of this property when that development agreement was negotiated.
Do we know what the current use of the property is?
It's my understanding that there's some nonprofit use or for-profit and also Merrimack College use in the parcel right now.
So Merrimack, part of it is currently used by Merrimack.
Yes,
So they're
that's my understanding.
potentially
Yep.
purchasing a building they already use.
Mhm.
Okay. And then there's another building that it's office space. Is that what is that what this is?
I believe so, and they
Currently.
have recently, and I don't know the specific details about this, Jean may be able to help fill in on this, they've recently been issued a demolition permit, and there are plans for that, and part of the building will be used as the engineering department for, by the college.
Okay. It's an interesting one because if it was anybody else that bought it, I don't know that we'd even talk about it. Timing, it's not ideal for our discussions, but I don't think, to me, I don't think it's worth holding off on our recommendation. I'm not sure that it adds anything, but it's up to people what they want to do. I mean, I think our recommendation.
You know, my thought is, Kelly.
Sorry,
will
I
you-
just had a
Go ahead.
question. So, I believe I heard that it's begun to be used as part of the engineering department for the school. So is there, I just want to make sure I understand what that means. Is this going to have staff and students going in and out to that area for, the engineering department?
I believe so. So I believe that's the principal use, but I don't have the specific details, so I can't really represent specifically what they're going to be using it for, but it's my understanding at this point that will be house the engineering department, and there will be classes, and there will be transportation between, I think the intent is for the dormitories and the Royal Crest and the engineering department.
I mean, obviously,
It was termed education, engineering school, so classroom as opposed to faculty offices is my
Okay,
understanding.
so classrooms, not like the engineering, not like the,
Like,
mechanicals.
Oh, yeah.
Classrooms, yes.
Yes, engineering
Well,
education.
most engineering departments have a combination of classrooms and laboratories.
Yes.
And the laboratories, depending on the type of engineering, can include a range of work, electronics, wet labs, fume hoods. It just depends on what type of engineering they're dealing with. But it is typical that an engineering building will have both classrooms and labs. But I have no idea what their plans are. You know, my only comment here, Eitan, is we've had lots of opportunities to speak with Merrimack College, which has been great. I think they've been great to attend. And we've had lots of questions about what are you planning? I suppose there's no obligation for them to actually tell us what they're planning, but it would have been a nice gesture to let us know that they're taking on the adjoining property. It just comes as a surprise since they've been here so many times and we've asked them so often to help us understand their plans. So it's just
I agree.
missed opportunity.
I agree. I mean, but again, I agree with you. It's somewhat frustrating to hear about it, like now, like last minute, like now we've done all this and now we hear something else when we've kind of digested everything that we've had so far. But at the same time, I mean, I know we did talk tangentially about this property when we talked like about DOT a while back, and the owner was talking with Trinity about different things. So, I mean, who knows how it came about or when it came about, or who, did it come from Merrimack or from the owner? Did he reach out to people? I don't think we have enough information really to scold them, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
So, Suzanne, when Melissa, you mentioned Melissa had met with you or just Melissa, and they mentioned that they were interested in this property, but there was no P&S at the time. My question to you is this. In those discussions, have they mentioned any other properties in and around that they're thinking about?
No, absolutely not.
So I guess the question before us is, I mean, one, again, we're hearing it may be in engineering. It could be anything, who knows, that later on. But taking that at face value, I'm not sure that doesn't seem to add much in the way of traffic. Would you, generally agree? I don't know.
I don't know, because I don't know. Kelly, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I just need you guys to be close to the microphones when you're,
Yeah,
when you sit back. It's hard.
I'm having the microphone for dinner.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is an engineering building that is a net increase in their engineering program, or if it's an engineering building that used to be on the main campus. So I have no idea what the ad is. And I don't know how big it is, so I don't know what the number of cars are. And at least for my purposes, most importantly, I don't know the makeup of the engineering program. Is it classrooms and lectures halls, or is it labs? And if it's labs, what type of labs? I mean, there's a vast array, and I don't want to go through the list because I don't want to cause, undue concern. But some labs are, deserve close attention. It just depends what they are, and we have no basis to really discuss it.
So let's put it this way. Does anyone think it's worthwhile to hold off on making a recommendation based on this? Again, knowing our recommendation this is our last opportunity to put our recommendation into. We do have the right, if we want to say we're going to recommend making to vote to make a recommendation at town meeting. We can do that. But I think we're better off. I don't think this changes really much, but if we want to, we can. So
I appreciate you raising the question. My reaction to that is, I have no idea if this changes it much. I just don't know. What I do know is it's a surprise because they've been here. But, I guess they didn't have to tell us. And I would like to be able to say whether or not it changes things, but I have no basis to know either way.
okay. Well, so let's continue on. We got the comment. Let's continue on. Do we have any other comments that have come in? Nope. You want one more public comment?
Actually, I do have one other question.
Yeah.
How come we know about this because of Andrea? Of all the other sources, why is it Andrea? And thank you, Andrea.
Well, I guess it's a question of relevance, but and what's brought before the board. But yeah, I know there was a public records request made regarding this.
Okay.
So that was, earlier. So I think it's just coming up as a topic for everyone.
Relic 87 Sugarcane Lane, just specific to this building. I'm very familiar with these buildings. I've leased them out over the years. You've got an office building and a retail building, a fairly significant size with parking. I've spoken with the owner relatively recently, not about this particular transaction, but I know that they've been heavily involved as it relates to the whole work of 114 being done. So relative to the question in this particular comment, has it been added to the traffic study? I'm sure that from a retail perspective, there's a lot higher traffic pattern from a retail use than there would be from a classroom use, and I just thought it might be worthwhile to hear that. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
There's no retail on that property today. Really.
Theoretically,
yeah,
right.
There's no retail there today.
But I guess
John, but there has been over the years.
But there is not any now.
There isn't at the moment. It's a vacant.
Okay. Yeah.
So I would like to address Mr. Boynton's question about why you're hearing about it from Andrea. The reason you're not hearing about it from the town is because we weren't aware of it, right? Because we just became aware of this recently. So it wasn't that, it wasn't that the town manager or I knew about this transaction. So that's why you are hearing about it from her just as much as we're all hearing about it too.
Well, look, I'm
And
not trying to cast aspersions. I'm truly not. But if you just became aware of it, you're at the board. And, why aren't you telling us instead of, well, luckily we have, a comment that I think you said just came in tonight, and you're here and you just became aware of it. So again, I don't know, maybe the view was that it wasn't appropriate or needed, I don't know, but I think it is coming to the board as a surprise, and it may be that it has no impact. We just don't know.
Okay. We good to continue, everyone? Good? Yes? Questions? Okay. All right. No additional comments. So let's, does anyone have anything else they want to say as part of the public hearing? What we'll do next is we'll go to the planning board report and recommendations. Nope. Okay, so let's continue. Should we continue them for the next hearing? Yeah, we might as well just keep them open just in case anything comes in and public comments come in. Okay, so we're going to continue these. When's the next date?
April 26th.
Because we're not meeting during school vacation week, right? Okay, so these articles are continued until April 26th. Okay. Now, we are going to do planning board report. So Jean, what's the best way to do this? We're going to go through the articles? All right, that's a great way to do it. Let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, typically, so the report includes both the zoning amendment articles as well as the non-zoning amendment articles that the planning board makes recommendations on. And
Just go in order then.
Yep.
Okay, so first,
I'm sorry, I want to make sure what's open. Jean, is this the document that's at the bottom of the agenda, planning board report? Just to make sure I'm looking at the same thing.
yep, it's labeled 220405 REV Planning Board Report.pdf.
So, Akon, just to clarify, have you continued the public hearing? Because the zoning amendment articles, if you are going to make recommendations, that would be during your public hearing.
Why?
Because the zoning amendment, that's the hearing you're having, is on the zoning amendment articles.
Oh, okay. So I guess we'll keep them open then, and we are going to make recommendations on those. But we're going to make but we can make them on these ones even though
Yes,
they...
so these are not public hearing articles?
Okay, I see.
And again, you can continue it at the end of the meeting. but
So,
I would
yeah,
just-
so we will be, fine.
Okay.
Scratch that, reverse it,
That's
go back in time. We will be continuing the public hearings until April 26th, but they're considered still open, so we can make our recommendation. All right, thank you.
Very
Jean.
good.
All right, let's do Article 3, authorization to accept grants of easements. This allows the select board in the town, or to authorize the select board to accept grants of easements during the year without having to go back to town meeting. Could I get a motion to vote, recommend favorable action on Article 3?
So moved.
Motion made?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Kelly?
Yes.
Alyssa?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
I vote yes. That was to accepting grant of easements. Article 4, authorization to grant easements. Can I get a motion to recommend favorable action?
So moved.
Motion made.
Second.
Seconded. Kelly?
Yes.
Alyssa?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay. Yeah. Article 7, acquisition of 400 Great Pond Road. See if the town will vote to authorize the select board to acquire by gift, purchase, and/or eminent domain for general municipal purposes, including protection of the public water supply, the fee or other interest in a parcel of land containing 7.8 acres, more or less, within buildings thereon located at 400 Great Pond Road. This is Article 7. Nope, went a little too far. Yeah, yep. And let's see, we have for $1.7 million, appropriated sum of $1.7 million, and some additional language to allow the select board to authorize the final purchase price, and allow the select board and town manager to grant and convey restrictions as necessary. Jean, And you can tell, this really hasn't been in front of us much other than a little bit about, in the development agreement, so.
Yep, so the town manager did advise me, I went to her to get some background here. She advised me that you may want to hold off your recommendation. The select board will have an executive session to discuss it on April 11th, to discuss it further. So there may be additional information available.
So let's do it. I mean,
Yeah, this thing is a pretty big deal and with a lot of moving parts to it. And one of the things everybody should realize is that they asked for a big chunk of the money for this property at the Community Preservation Committee. We voted against it. And it's extremely complex because basically the land is already protected. And we're buying it to basically tear down the historical house. But I don't want to go into it too much
and
now,
there
but
was
we can do it later.
and
yeah.
there was a discussion about the raising the lake and.
And the
things like
raising
that.
of the
So-
lake, and man, there's a lot
Okay.
Just
there.
have to add, as came up at the joint meeting, raising the lake involves a lot of questions. It sounds like it's pretty simple, and why not have more water? But it exposes the entire shoreline to wave action and erosion that it hasn't had before. And, erosion around the lake is not a, tree hugger concern. It absolutely goes to the quality of the water. If the water column is full of new sediment particles from erosion all around the shore, that can serve as tiny sites for facilitating the growth of algae. Now, that deserves a lot of study, but my point is, the watershed plan update, the master plan, did not address the potential impacts of raising that lake that amount and what the impacts could be. And if we decide to do it, we should know what the costs are before we do it.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I don't understand what the actual plan is. Like, so we acquire 400 Great Pond Road, and then what are we doing? Are we moving the house? Are we, there's just not it
Well,
doesn't seem like there's.
I'll just read what it says in the explanation. So 400 Great Pond Road abuts Lake Cottage and hampers the town's ability to raise the water level in the lake to store water reserves for the town's drinking water supply.
Can I just interject there? Because you might ask, why does this have anything to do with hampering the ability to raise the lake? And you can't see it unless you literally paddle by the house, which I've done 1,000 times. And the historic house sits on a stone foundation that's actually in the lake, but that's not the issue. The stone foundation has a 3/4 door going into the foundation, not on the land side, but on the lake side. The only way you can get to this 3/4 door in the foundation is in a boat. And when the lake is at high level, the level of the lake is right at the bottom of that door. And what has happened over the years is if the town can manage the height of the lake by the hatch, which drains into Stevens Pond. And if the town lets the lake get too high, the previous owner would call the water department and say, hey, my basement's about to flood. And there are statutes that affect the not being able to intrude on an owner. I'm obviously not a lawyer here because I'm not citing it very well, but that's the issue, that there's a door that would allow the lake to pour into the basement of this house.
So, right, and then it talks about acquisition would allow, by raising the lake level, control the development and use of the parcel and potentially provide public access to the lakefront. The town is working on developing a partnership with a third party to ensure that the parcel will be put to the highest and best use while protecting the public water supply. That's the explanation. So I think there are enough questions and for us, not enough information that we're not in a position to make a recommendation. So I would ask for a motion to make the recommendation at town meeting. Or if someone wants to make an alternative motion, they can do that. So our choices are make a motion to recommend favorable action, make a motion to recommend unfavorable action, or hold off until we learn more by making a recommendation at town meeting.
Well,
Again,
we could do it sometime between now and town meeting.
It would just be printed in the warrant that you're going to make
Right.
at town meeting. You may discuss it on the 26th.
Right.
Right, I mean, we could vote before town meeting.
Yep.
That's my point.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
but we have to put right now, we're talking about putting something in the.
The book,
in
yeah, the
book.
recommendation to be made at town meeting.
Right,
That's
that's
fair.
what I'm asking for, is a motion to say
Yeah.
that in the book, it'll say a recommendation at town meeting. If we want to talk about it before then, I mean, I think it would be great for someone to come to us before then to talk about it. That would be ideal. So, do we want to do that
My preference is to hold off.
on making a recommendation?
Yeah.
So then in the book, it'll say nothing.
Yeah, it'll say we'll make a recommendation at town meeting.
Right.
No.
So that's the motion.
No, but we need to make a motion to say that, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I'll
yes,
make a motion to
yes.
that
So,
effect.
so moved.
Okay, so
Yeah.
motion made that the planning board report will say, planning board will make a recommendation at town meeting. Yes, okay, good, good. Okay, yes, we all agree.
Okay.
All right, Kelly,
Thank you for helping
Yes.
me through that.
yeah, Alyssa,
Yes.
John,
Yes,
Peter,
Aye.
I agree, okay. Accept donation of land, Academy Road property, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to accept a gift by donation or otherwise the fee interest in a parcel of land located at Academy Road, shown as Lot 1B, B2, on the plan entitled Plan of Land in North Andover, Mass.
Could somebody describe where this parcel is?
So there's a whole article, so basically accepting a parcel of land. So tell us about what land we are being asked to vote on. Suzanne?
So, I can help you with that, and I'm sure John can help also, since he was on the Community Preservation Committee when this was acquired. So there's a parcel of land on Academy Road that abuts 140 Academy Road that the town acquired through payment by the the Community Preservation Commission funding a conservation restriction on. And the conservation restriction says that it's for public access, open space, and for those purposes. So along the frontage of Academy Road on this parcel is a stone wall and a fence, which bars public access to the property. So the town has held a CR on it, paid for a CR on this property since, I'm going to have the date wrong, it's 2005, I think. So since 2005, but we haven't had any access to it. So there's been a debate between the fee owner, which is Center Realty Trust, and the Community Preservation Commission about gaining access to this parcel. So through this conversation, Center Realty Trust has offered to donate the fee to the town. So that would provide the town ability to create public access to the frontage by taking down the fence and, making a access way to it. And that means that the town would then have the fee and the conservation restriction, which you can't have that because then they merge and there's no conservation restriction. So we're in conversation with conservation nonprofit organizations to hold that fee. I've been talking to Greenbelt and asked them if they're interested in it. They're going to hopefully go out this week with a team to see if that's something that they would be interested in holding, but that's to be arranged. And this town meeting warrant article merely authorizes the Board of Selectmen to accept the fee under terms and conditions that are appropriate for the town.
And
So
the-
we don't have to have that in line at this moment.
And the parcel shown on the screen, the green parcel, is that the piece we're talking about, or are we talking about a piece that allows us to access the green parcel?
We're talking about that parcel. So it abuts 140. Can we take the little
It's
X
between the
off?
North Parish Church.
The whole thing.
Take what?
That X so we can see it.
You lose the green if you do, but
Oh.
that's fine. So North Parish Church
Yep.
in the Rotary is to the lower portion.
Yeah,
It's between that and what Suzanne is referring to as 140 Academy Road, so that's this parcel?
okay,
Yellow house?
Yep.
yep.
So the warrant article authorizes the town to accept the donation on terms that are acceptable to the town. There's two issues that are sort of there are two problems, or not problems, but two issues that have to be resolved that are in the deed, the fee deed that run with the land, that it benefits the 140 Academy Road. They essentially have a maintenance obligation on the fee owner of that parcel to mow it and also to make sure that the view of the church is maintained. And they either the owner of the fee has to do it, or the the owners of 140 Academy Road can do it and then bill the owners of the fee. So obviously, you can't have the public can't provide a benefit purely for private interest, so we would have to negotiate that issue before accepting that fee.
I think a couple other things to add is that when the original CPC project was done in 2005, it was really an attempt to ensure the preservation of all the properties owned by the Historical Society or affiliated to the Historical Society, which Center Realty Trust was, to be locked up forever, because that's probably the most historic street in North Andover. So this was one of the multiple parcels that was involved in that. At the time, originally, there was some thought that, oh, wouldn't it be a good idea to put a parking lot there? That is problematic for a number of reasons, not least of which I think you alluded to it, Suzanne, that you can't have a conservation restriction on a property and at the same time build a big parking lot and use the property for that purpose. And it's also, the church doesn't particularly want it. It doesn't necessarily fit in, and the topography doesn't work. So it comes, we got a conservation restriction on this property. How do we use it for level public access? I think there's a couple of other variables in there, because if you've ever noticed very carefully, there is a wall that runs straight from, what used to be the beginning of Bob Stevens' house, that, he obviously no longer owns it, all the way down to, I think, the corner of the church property. And I think one of the questions that's particularly important to me is that if you're going to make this accessible by the town, how much of that fence are you going to have to remove? And I think it's also subject under Mass Historic to a specific preservation restriction. So there's other factors there, but the question is, how ultimately is the town going to use that property? How are we going to work out those sorts of things? It feels like this is still a work in process. I mean, I think it's, it may very well make sense to do this, but there may be other alternatives. I mean, what objective in the end does the town want other than, in this case? I mean, what is the town's compelling interest? Is it to provide access to the property? Do we know how it's going to provide access? I don't know.
So nobody's been using it for public access in the last 15 years?
Forever. I mean, it's just a property that they own, and,
But there's a conservation restriction requiring.
We do, but there's no access. That's the problem.
If we wanted access, our alternatives are to purchase it, come to some sort of agreement where you get access, or sue them and saying you're blocking the purpose of the conservation restriction, and not, somehow try to enforce the conservation restriction because it's not being used right now.
I think it's a little bit different. It's
donation.
How do you provide?
No, right. That's what I mean. A donation. Same thing.
This is zero.
Getting ownership. Yeah.
Right. So this is a donation of land to the town, and I think that John is making a good point. There's a lot of moving pieces, and all this warrant article does is authorize the town to the Board of Selectmen to sort of look at the moving pieces and to say, is this something that's going to benefit the town? Can we work out an arrangement that works for everyone?
So the question more is, do we vote for preemptive approval? If you can figure it out, do something with it, or do we wait till an actual plan is in place and then come back at the next town meeting? It's one of the difficulties with town meeting.
It's a little bit, because I think that because there's a lot of complexities associated with this, what might appear to be the most logical path now is not the path that we would eventually take here, because, having it owned by the town isn't necessarily going to be the best way to provide the public access if you have the issue of this, the fence in the wall. And if you've seen it, it's absolutely beautiful. It really is pristine. And do we want to tear it down for the whole length of that property? I don't think so. I don't think that makes any sense at all. So it feels to me a little bit premature about what's the use going to be. I mean, how are we going to use the property? Is it consistent with the preservation restriction? I just, want to get a little bit more information.
Is there any harm, I guess I'm just asking in general, to accepting it and having it and then doing nothing with it?
Well, but it might turn out that that's not, giving it over to the town may not be the best solution. I don't know. It
No,
feels
that's why
to
I'm asking
me
what
we
the
ought to
harm-
wait a little bit longer in the same way in the last one we wait. I think we should wait a little bit longer.
Okay. Let's get a motion to make our recommendation at town meeting then.
So I would make that motion.
Motion made to make recommendation at town meeting.
Second?
Second, all in favor, Kelly?
Yes.
Alyssa?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Peter?
Aye.
I vote yes. Okay. Article 15, report of the Community Preservation Committee. John, what can you tell us about what projects are being proposed?
The things,
Or you can use my computer too if you
could
want.
we get the amounts put up there?
Yeah, I have them here too if you want.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, okay. This is a relatively light year for CPC projects. And a lot of them are for really recreation and open space. The very first one, the $199,000 to the school department, is really to create a cross-country trail for the cross-country team. Right now, they don't have one, and it's a real problem. And basically, they're doing it on Stevens Estate, but Osgood Hill, but also particularly the backside of the Usler property. So it's actually, kind of a very creative effort where the cross-country team, the Trails Committee, and other people work together. So I think it's a good project. I think it makes a lot of sense. The second item, the Maseratico Farm Trails, I think this is a common thing where you get the Friends of the Trails. They want some money for construction of boardwalks, a lot of sweat equity, so it makes it a lot cheaper, to do projects like that. The next item is the Historical Society. If you remember the last thing we saw, it's the Historical Society property is right there. Probably about 7 or 8 years ago, they did a master plan of the refurbishment process for the Historical Society buildings, and this was the Johnson Cottage was the next major thing on the list. It's the preservation of the cottage. The next one for the boat ramp, Peter is very familiar with that. And I think the basic premise of what they're trying to do is okay, but I think it has to be closely monitored so that we don't create a problem on the lake. Peter, I didn't know if you had anything specific you wanted to add there.
I think I may have used up my quota for talking about the lake. I only get so many minutes per meeting, and if the chairman will allow. So this is the old North Pump Station. It's by Butcher Boy. The pump station was removed a few years ago, and now it's used as public boat racks for residents who have a permit for a boat. And there is the derelict remains of a boat ramp there that was used by the town when the town had that as a fenced property with restricted access to run the old North Pump Station. The town now uses a boat ramp at the water treatment plant on the far side of the lake, and that's important for fire rescue and on-lake water testing. The Select Board established lake use regulations, I think in '99 or thereabouts, and then amended them in 2016. And ever since they first established them, there's been a rule that no trailers are allowed on the lake. You cannot put a boat in a trailer. And if you first see it, it's like, well, that's kind of weird. Why would you do that? And it's because trailered boats are a notorious vector for invasive species from one lake to another. And, there's a whole bunch of bass fishing websites online where, wherever bass is being caught, they descend. And, it's a great sport. By not having a publicly accessible boat ramp, the town has never had to provide any enforcement because you're not allowed to put a trailer in and there's no way you could. This current plan notes that derelict ramp is not safe, and it isn't. It's not safe to walk down because it's all busted up. The safety problem should be fixed. But the issue here is that the proposal is to, quote, rebuild the boat ramp. This is no longer a restricted property. Anybody can go in and out. There's public boat racks for town residents, but the fact is that anybody can drive in there. And if there is a boat ramp, it will be used. Now, there's talk of putting a bollard or a curb so you couldn't use the boat ramp. But to rebuild a boat ramp is probably going to cost us about $1 million because you have to extend it into the water. It's got to essentially have weight bearing like a road. Why should we do that? It'll create an enforcement problem. It'll cost the town way too much money. What we should do is fix the safety issue by putting a safe, sloped lake access to hand carry boats. If we do more than that, we're creating a problem for the town. Which department is going to provide enforcement when trailered boats get put in the lake with gas engines that are not allowed? I literally don't know the answer to that. I think no town department is ready to do that. And why should we spend the money? So it's an idea that should be done to fix the safety problems, but it really must be done differently.
Where does that leave us with this 89,000 for design?
Well,
Is
the
that a good
problem
thing or
is
a
that
bad thing,
right now,
in your opinion?
the design is still to rebuild the boat ramp. And the thought is that let's trust what the engineers come back with. But if we tell them to design a boat ramp, we know what they're going to come back with, a boat ramp. So we might want to consider taking these things separately if there's any interest in perhaps okaying some but not all. For me, this is, again, the intent is pure, it's good, the safety issue should be fixed, I'm totally supportive of it, but this is a wrong way to do it, and I would not vote to recommend this. Everything else, yes, but not this.
May I ask a question? Because it says in here improvements to the existing boat ramp, but they're saying take that out, so it's not to the, actually to the existing boat ramp, it's something completely new?
Well, you're right, that's what it says. So it was a boat ramp with pavement extending into the water, but the pavement is all broken up into chunks. So if you try to walk down it to hand carry a boat, which is what people are doing now, it's really a tripping hazard. You could twist your ankle, you could fall, jagged pieces of concrete, it's a mess. So if you fix the existing boat ramp, you have a new boat ramp.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
I mean, and to put it in context, the original proposal that they had was much larger than this. It was close to 150,000, and it was to even do more, and it wouldn't even cover any construction costs. So as Peter said, potentially, you could be talking $500,000, $1 million on this thing, and fact is it would create a problem in the lake. So, my hope of the committee was let's scale it back so that we just do a very minimal design so that we can figure out the best way to walk a boat in, a safe way of doing it. But the committee didn't want to do that. So
The town has put hand carry boat launch sites in. There's one on Pleasant Street that the town DPW put in about 3 or 4 years ago. In that case, it's wooden steps. There's a concern here that steps might be dangerous. So, okay, do something that's a gentle slope for people to walk down with their boats.
Not locking you into anything, but you think a amendment to this article would be appropriate at town meeting then? In your opinion, I mean, as
Yeah,
this is an harbor master,
I think
your expertise.
it would be appropriate to say the safety issue should be fixed, and it should, instead of rebuilding the boat ramp, should provide a safe hand carry launch point.
But, so all those points, they all make sense to me, but what the town will vote on is whether or not to allocate $89,000, $300 or not. So your position would be, we shouldn't do that, we should come up with another plan and not allocate that money.
We could allocate the money if it was
Or-
towards designing a safe hand carried
Okay, so that's an alternative.
lake access point.
Okay,
But not
I see.
the term boat ramp.
I see. So there are two options. One, amend it. If to do what you're saying, you can either strike that and they can just come back and do it, or you can amend it for what that is. Okay, all right, the rest is for Affordable Housing Trust, the
Yeah.
trails, the library, planning and administrative.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and it's, the amount of money is far less than we take in. I mean, we take in about 2 million on the levy, and we got about 1 million last year from the state, so.
And how's our account look?
We're pretty high. I mean, we're probably back to 3 or 4 billion of unallocated money, and that even includes the fact that we're holding the 6 million for the Fields project. Remember the large Fields projects that,
She's going to trials sometime soon, Suzanne,
Yeah.
maybe?
On the 25th.
Of this month. We'll be rooting for you.
Yeah.
And defending our honor as people who have been sued.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, let's see. So we're making a recommendation. I don't see why we can't say we recommend favorable action other than the public works, boat ramp.
Well, first off, I'm not sure the rest of the board agrees with me. I mean, I appreciate
Well,
you
let's
letting
make
me
we can make that
speak it,
motion.
yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't heard opposition.
Do we want to do it in 2 motions or in one? That, do we want to make a motion, we approve it, but for that specific project, we think the scope should be narrowed? Or do you, how
No,
would
the
you
scope
frame
should
it,
be
Pete?
changed to a safe hand-carry boat launch rather than a boat ramp.
Okay.
You just have to, the amount of money is fine, and
All
the
right,
intent is fine, but
Let's do this.
not the words boat ramp.
Let's vote whether or not we approve that concept,
Okay.
and then you can forward language to Jean, run it by me
Yeah.
to put in the
Okay.
in the packet. Planning board report. Sorry. Okay. Well, let's make that motion, and if people agree to it, then they agree to it. If not, then we'll make a different motion. All right, so the motion to be made by Peter is to recommend favorable action of the article, which is Article 13, Gene? 15. Article 15, except for the $89,300 to the Public Works, and to be amended as he just laid out. Motion made?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Kelly?
Yes.
Alyssa?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Peter?
Aye.
I vote yes. This has been an interesting one tonight. All right.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
John, yeah. All right. Article, okay. Article 27, inclusionary zoning, we already did, right?
Yep.
All right, so
You
that
recommended favorable action.
unanimous favorable action on Article 27 has already been made. All right. What page is Article 28? 28, okay. Article 28, so it's just 28 and 29 left?
Yep.
Okay, 28, and this is now, we're still going back to our public hearing. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to vote our recommendation on the 2 Royal Crest related articles, Articles 28 and 29. But before we do that, so one, I want to talk about the quantum of votes. All right, so did everyone get a chance to read what was drafted? I drafted this with the assistance of town council about the quantum of vote required. So this is not part of our recommendation, but what will, if we all agree on it, will go into the planning board report, regardless of whether we recommend favorable, unfavorable, or to be made at town meeting. This will be in the report as a talking about the quantum of vote. And what I've written, and I'll share that with everyone, is pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5, Paragraph 5, the quantum of vote required for this article is a simple majority greater than 50%. General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5 was amended in 2020 by Chapter 358 of the Acts of 2020. It provides that the quantum of vote to adopt certain zoning bylaws is a simple majority. 40A, Section 5, Paragraph 5 states, and this emphasis is added, the following shall be adopted, shall in the law meaning must be, it's not discretionary, shall be adopted by a vote of a simple majority of town meeting. One, an amendment to a zoning ordinance or bylaw to allow any of the following as of right: multifamily housing or mixed-use development in eligible location, accessory dwelling units, whether within the principal dwelling or a detached structure on the same lot, or C, open space residential development. Two, an amendment to a zoning ordinance or bylaw to allow by special permit, A, multifamily housing or mixed-use development in an eligible location, an increase in the permissible density of population or intensity of a particular use in a proposed multifamily or mixed-use development pursuant to Section 9. C, accessory dwelling units. D, a diminution in the amount of parking required for residential and mixed-use development pursuant to Section 9. And those, it can be any of those. If it meets any of those things, then it's a simple majority vote. The proposed zoning bylaw allows multifamily and mixed-use housing as of right and by special permit. The zoning district is located in an eligible location. The Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development has provided an advisory opinion stating that the location of the overlay district meets the definition of eligible location under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, Paragraph 5. See the April 4th, 2022 letter from DHCD. The bylaw meets the criteria in paragraphs 1A, 2A, 2B, and therefore is subject to the simple majority vote. So I think I tried to lay out the law as it stands today, requiring the vote as the bylaw is drafted. If there were any amendments to the bylaw, that could change, right? Suzanne, is that fair? Could potentially. I'm just saying, if somehow, again, I don't see this as a likely possibility, but if an amendment was made at town meeting which altered all three of those things, I guess, if none of them applied, then it could theoretically be changed. But we have to put in what it is based on the bylaw currently. Okay, so.
So I do have a question about
Yes.
the advisory opinion. The very last line, again, I'm not an attorney.
The very last line of the advisory.
Of the advisory opinion.
Okay, hold on.
I mean, the whole last paragraph is all sort of the sort of exception, and it's not
Distancing.
binding, and it really kind of takes the air out of it a bit, but I guess they're just covering themselves. But the last line says, this advisory determination does not constitute a determination under Chapter 40R of the general laws. So just help me understand, what is that saying?
40R is a smart growth district, so that has a different definition or a separate definition for eligible, and we're not saying that this is a smart growth district. 40R is a separate
Right.
statute for smart growth.
And so the advisory is not saying, I don't know why they can't say that, but it's not a smart growth, so what is it? Not smart growth, it's,
So I think I can help a little bit here. So essentially it is, this paragraph is saying what you said earlier, saying this is not this. This is only X, right? So it's saying it's not a determination of
Right.
an eligible location for smart growth. So we know that, right? This is not we had a smart growth, that was the Osgood Landing smart growth. This is saying this is a determination as an eligible location for the purposes of the mixed-use multifamily housing development under Section 5.
I think it's so you couldn't take their advisory opinion, and then if you had a 40R zoning proposal and say, look, they said it was an eligible location, you couldn't use that for a 40R.
Is eligible location a capitalized term? I mean, or is it sort of like you'll know it when you see it, or like, what's an eligible location?
So eligible location was defined in Chapter 40A in the amendments, and we went through that. It's an area of concentrated development. It is also like a downtown area. Remember, we had that discussion at our earlier meeting,
I
and
guess
so
a little
it's.
bit
I
what I'm
think-
trying to do is, and I get there's a certain level of ambiguity associated, but like, where does the line get drawn?
Well, so I was speaking with representatives from DHCD in terms of looking at this zoning bylaw and making sure that we had the advisory opinion. And one of the things that they related is one of the reasons that this provision or this process is in place for DHCD to provide an advisory opinion, because of exactly what you're saying. The eligible location is sort of amorphous, right? We can say it is, but we want to make sure, we want to have something that not guarantees, but we get an opinion from DHCD, who's the regulatory agency for this zoning act, to help us make that determination, and that's what this advisory opinion
And
is.
here's the definition, if you want. Areas that by virtue of their infrastructure, transportation access, existing underutilized facilities, or location make highly suitable locations for residential or mixed-use smart growth zoning districts or starter home zoning districts, including without limitation areas near transit stations, including rapid transit, commuter rail, and bus and ferry terminals, or to areas of concentrated development, including town and city centers, other existing commercial districts in cities and towns, and existing rural village districts. I'm not sure if that's much help, other than
Well,
you probably know what it's not. rather than
I know what
it is.
it's not. I
Right.
mean, I know that if you're out in the edge of Sharpness Pine Road, that's not in there, but, you know, like, does that mean that Takis is now a subject for it? I mean, you know, again, it's, I guess it's pretty, I read it as that any multifamily or mixed-use development, just about anywhere, is going to be subject to majority rule in the future.
It's by right.
By right, yeah, by right, well, yeah,
or
you know,
even
by
density.
right, or even by special permit, but
Yeah.
the point is, and I just wanted to ask, even though it's not part of the thing today, accessory dwelling, one, it doesn't have the eligible location, and so they're saying is anytime a town has an accessory dwelling by law, it's by majority vote.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm surprised they didn't put inclusionary zoning in this, but I guess that technically makes density more difficult theoretically.
Right,
So I guess
right.
that's
So
why.
it's sort of a burden on a developer, right,
Right.
as opposed to saying, here, you can just build.
Okay, I can see that. So, language, is everyone good with the language?
I am, but I need to ask if we can go back to another question, since Suzanne happens to be sitting at
Oh,
the table.
I should've-
You should have gone away
Oh,
faster.
As to this article or as to a different article?
As to the acquisition by Merrimack of the property adjacent to where this article is addressing.
Yeah,
And my question was
Yeah,
this,
that's
you
fine.
said that Merrimack has offered a sum of money,
Has increased the amount of money that's, that would be included as a part of the development agreement.
and do you know what it was increased from and to?
1 million to 1,650,000.
And do we know how that compares to the loss of tax revenue for the property they acquired? Because it seems like it's substantial, but really it depends on what the loss of tax revenue is, because that's how we should judge whether or not we should be impressed by that.
Right, and I can't give you those details tonight.
And do we know if Merrimack's looking to modify that property, building permits, that kind of thing?
Well, it already has obtained a building permit, a demolition permit.
But they've submitted
So it's
plans.
entirely possible they could build a two-story structure there, right? I mean,
What are the plans that they've submitted?
They've submitted plans consistent with an educational use for labs and engineering school, with classrooms and labs and things.
Oh, it does say labs.
do we know the size, like the square footage and
It's-
how tall? And
So 530 Turnpike is the building that is closest to the Peter Shaheen strip mall. So it's the lower one, it's more yellowish looking
Yeah,
and runs
yeah.
long. The other building is an office building that it might be 3 stories high, if I remember correctly. So
Did they mention what type of labs? Because depending on the HVAC requirements, those stacks really tall, right?
If they're venting hazmat through fume hoods, they gotta achieve a height.
Yeah, and if it's a Chem-E program, then they might bring in a distillation column too, which is pretty large.
So I don't know those details. I did ask the building commissioner if there's any proposed increase in height of the building, and he said there was not.
So here's what I'd say is that I agree. I don't think that money really changes really much of anything. At the same time, if they purchase it, the tax revenue's gonna come off one way or the other, right? So if they're given more, fine, but I don't think it really, I wouldn't consider it a swaying factor in any way, at least in my opinion. So, okay. Back to the language, we all good, yes? Everyone good? Okay, so good. We're good with that. That'll go into the report. All right, vote. Okay, so, all right, so before we vote on this, again, I keep saying that. I just want to thank everyone. Jean, thank you for all your work on this over the last year and a half, 2 years, however long we've been going at this. It's been invaluable. And as much as we appreciate it, I think it's underappreciated in total. So we thank you, Dan, and the rest of your staff as well. Suzanne, thank you for all the extra meetings you've attended, all the work you've put in, the contacts you've gone through to get us here. I do want to thank the Trinity and Aimco for all their presentations, and we've asked a lot of hard questions, and I think you've had good answers to some, and some, some people we haven't been as impressed in, but I think overall, I think you've done a great job of presenting the information, of providing us the data that we asked for, of answering our questions, of standing in there when you've been asked difficult questions. And I appreciate that, so thank you to you guys. I want to thank our board members. I mean, everyone here is a volunteer, so just remember that. We all have job, well, except for John now, he's like slacking off and visiting other countries in retirement. But the rest of us have jobs. John did for the last 30 years, so he counts. But everyone here is a volunteer, puts in a lot of work and time and effort. And one of the things that I really love about this board is that we come with different backgrounds, different ages, genders, viewpoints, but still come together and listen to each other and debate. And sometimes that debate is agreeable, and sometimes it's heated, and sometimes it's difficult. But I love that we can come and actually have those discussions, because a lot of places I think you can't have discussions. You can't do it online. It's just not possible to have a thoughtful, deliberate discussion with people that have different viewpoints. And I really love that we can do that, because I think it encapsulates what's really great about our town, that we have different viewpoints. And that's shown throughout this process, that people have strong opinions and they comment from different angles and think about different things. And that's awesome. And I really appreciate everyone's thoughtfulness in coming to the board and asking difficult questions and coming up with ideas about this as we've gone through it. So I wanted to say that. So what we're going to do now is make our recommendation. How we come about a recommendation. Usually we vote on special permits, and special permits have criteria. How does it affect the local neighborhood and the abutters? How does it affect, are there nuisances? How does it affect the town as a whole? What are the financial implications? What are the environmental implications? What are the stormwater implications? And we get experts and things like that. And we take all of those factors and we put them into the criteria and that state law provides us, and we say, okay, based on these criteria, we either vote for the special permit or we vote against it. And that can be appealed and things like that. A recommendation to town meeting, although it's required by state law requires us to have one public hearing, we've had multiple, requires us to make a recommendation, but it doesn't tell us how to go about that. So I think what we do is we think about a lot of those criteria that come from special permits, and we, in our own minds, come to a conclusion, and everyone can give those things different weights. So I will say for me that I try to think about the positives of a project, all the, in a project like this, mixed use and affordable housing and the amount of housing and where the location, things that I consider positive that others may consider negatives. But the diverse use, the financial implications, the benefits that the finances give us to our schools and to our public safety and to the town in general, the increased tax revenue, the growth rate, all those things that help our bond rating, those things, the development agreements as well. And then I look at the negatives that I could see. Potential increases in traffic, the construction over a period of 8 to 10 years, the effects of larger buildings among the neighbors. Those are things that I think could definitely be viewed as negatives, and I weigh those and give those different weights. And so that's how I come about it. For this particular project, I found that I'm convinced that the positives, frankly, by a good amount, outweigh the negatives. I think a hotel, added dorm space, retail, the added affordable housing, where it's located in one location rather than all across town in terms of our 40B projects, and having control, having the added tax revenues with the development agreements that mitigate some of the legitimate concerns. I come out as a positive, but that's at least my thinking on it. I'm going to give other members of the board opportunity to talk about your feelings and where you come down, how you think about it. You don't have to. You can say, I'm just ready to make a recommendation, but I wanted to give everyone an opportunity. Sean, you too. I know you're not voting, but I want you to have an opportunity as well. Kelly, as you're our remote person, I'll start with you, and then we'll just kind of go down the line, and people can talk about how they feel, okay? And then we'll make our recommendation. I'll stop talking.
I appreciate the opportunity, Tom, but I don't have anything additional to add.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
I've taken a lot of time tonight, so let me pass to the other members, and then I'll make some comments at the end if I can.
Okay, Alyssa.
Thank you. So I've really enjoyed the discussion that we've heard from the community on both sides of the development concerns, pros, cons, really taking a lot of them into consideration. I think it's probably not disputed that the property is outdated. It's not an environmentally sustainable or sound project currently, and that something needs to be done about the project as it stands in its current state. I think that even from several of the comments that we've heard here, for those against or for it, have come to at least one consensus for the most part on that issue. Given the proposal before us, I see that North Andover needs more housing. I think that's a positive of this project. I think this project gives affordable housing, it gives inventory, which will help bring in diversity. I love the sense of community that the project gives. And really opening up to increased businesses, not only new businesses, but our current businesses. I think bringing in new residents will help our current businesses, our current restaurants. I love to see them thrive, be successful, and I think that this project really leans towards that. I love that the current infrastructure, as far as environmental factors come into play, redoing the sewage, the water, building a development that has more sustainable qualities and is overall more environmentally sound project. I think it's a forward-thinking project. Overall, I have to agree with Eitan that I believe there are definitely some negatives to this project. I can't dispute this, but I do agree that I think the positives of it outweigh the negative, and that's where I'm coming from on the development.
Okay, Sean?
Yeah, great. So I think just overall, I think that the development itself is pretty exciting for the town. It's going to change really a lot on how we implement walkability and kind of drive more of a sense of community. And I think that Trinity has certainly listened to a lot of the town's people across, the last couple of years, and as joining recently on the planning board, I've been following this project for quite some time. And so, kind of just to walk through some of what I believe is some of the positives is, we have a pretty robust development agreement, right? That I think it will add a lot of capital investments for our school systems. That was a growing concern. We're embracing Merrimack College. And it's centralizing their students, which I think there's been a lot of comments from the abutters, with some of the students being a bit spread out across the parcel. And it grants, one thing is interesting, and it grants access for the town to use this parcel. If you weren't part of Royal Crest, you didn't have a reason to be at Royal Crest, this just allows the town to actually use it, right? And really drives a sense of community. So I was pretty excited about that. And there's also some pretty large infrastructure improvements, right? It's a pretty wet parcel. There's some, surface water that has some issues that affects the surrounding abutters, and this will actually help remediate that. So, And I think, obviously, there's certainly not, there's a lot of positivity with these projects, but, there's going to be a long, some of the cons, there's going to be a long development cycle, right? And I certainly feel for the abutters being, close proximity to a construction zone. But, net, if you look at this from the pros versus the cons, I really think this is a large net positive for the town. So I'll table it there, so.
Okay, John?
I certainly will acknowledge that a lot of thought and effort has been put into this project. I think the developers listened to what people have said, and I think the architecture is very good. I still come down to the opinion that this is too much density for North Andover. It's just out of character with the overall history and pattern and growth of this town over many years. We've done a lot of multifamily development over the last 10 or 15 years. Yes, the town is going to get a reasonable amount of money. The question is it worth it in the long run for the town? I think the increase in density, the impact on immediate neighborhoods is just more than I'm willing to take. If it were 20% less, I'd probably go for it, but I still think it's too big. So, and I say that reluctantly because I think the people put a lot of good time and effort into this, but it's just too much for the town.
Okay, thank you, John. Peter, anything?
Yeah, I will offer a few comments. Thanks, Eitan. So there's a lot about this that is appealing, I think, to some people. Notions of mixed use, walkability, affordable housing, public transportation, those are all great ideas. But what does it mean in this case, this development, that even if there are appealing ideas, does it fit? I know we've used the term density a lot, so let me get away from that and try to offer a few more specifics on where I'm coming down on, even with those appealing ideas or appealing attributes, what this means is more than a threefold increase in the built square foot on that parcel. So when you see Royal Crest right now, yes, the buildings are old, it's a wooded area, buildings are set back. When that was done decades ago, it was done with an eye towards what would fit. So we're going from 800,000 to 2.75 million square feet of built space. And it's not that change scares me. It's the question of, is this the right way to achieve those laudable goals? And as an important side note, someone else mentioned this evening the former Lucent property. I think it was one of the letters that was read, and how the town was patient. It was suggested that the development was going to be our best option. And there was a lot of concern about that. We were patient, and we got a much better option for the former Lucent property. Public transportation, who's not for that? We should all be striving for it, but I just don't get it, that increasing the daily vehicle trips by more than 3 times, how does that improve public transportation? It's a great selling point. We're going to have public transportation, but what you don't hear as much is this requires 3 times the daily vehicle trips in that most congested point of traffic in North Andover. And we're going to live with that if this goes forward. This question of, is this right? Is this the right way to achieve those attractive goals? In my time on the board, which pales to John's time, one of the most consistent bits of feedback that I have heard from our neighbors as we go from development to development to development to development is, when is the town going to look at the cumulative effects? And these are very pointed comments, people who are very, very frustrated that we approve development after development. This proposal seems to suggest that we're going to do exactly the opposite of all that feedback. Not only are we going to approve another development, we're going to approve perhaps the largest development in the history of North Andover. If you look at the last 6 developments since 2013, it's a total of 799 new units. This one alone adds something along the lines of 720, not quite the same amount, in one shot. I agree with John that the folks proposing this have made some design changes, and I think many of them are pretty good. But there's still concerns. They reduced the number of stories from 5 to 4, but these are going to be the tallest 4-story buildings in the town, 70 feet. All the other 4-story buildings are 50-something. So does that make sense that we reduce the number of stories, but the buildings are still just this high? The development agreement. The first time I knew about the development agreement was at the last meeting of the planning board, the joint planning board with the select board. So it was great to see what was in that. And my initial reaction was, $10 million, that's pretty impressive. And I said that at that meeting. But I've been thinking since then, if I was running a business, would I make a decision on my sort of shock and awe when I first hear the number? Or would I do something called benchmarking? After giving it some thought, I have no idea if that's a good development agreement. I have no idea if it's a good development agreement because I don't know what it compares to. Are we really doing well compared to other towns that have big developments and get development agreements? No idea. And why aren't we getting some benchmarking to tell us, is this really a good value or not? Affordability and extra housing. The state has said we have a housing crisis. They passed a law, it's 50% instead of 2/3. This town has had 6 developments over the last 10 years. This town is doing its part to add housing. So when we say we need to add housing, out of respect for all the people that have come before this board and asked, when are you going to consider the cumulative impacts, let's add that we have been adding housing consistently in this town. I don't know if every town's done that, but this town has done it. And affordability. The 40Bs will be affordable. That's a limited number of units. Sometimes when I'm at these board meetings, I hear people imply that there's other affordable units there. The only numbers I've heard at these meetings are of townhomes that are going to cost $750,000. And at the most recent meeting, the proposers would not give us a price because they said the prices are going up so fast. So the only affordable aspect of this development is the 40B, which is great. So a lot of good ideas and a lot of tremendously important goals. I am not convinced that this is the right way to achieve those goals. And the last time we had a big proposal for a big parcel here in North Andover, it was very important that we were patient. North Andover is a great place to come to. I am not convinced that this is our only option. So I'm not in favor. Thanks. But greatly appreciative of all the work and all the ideas. Just not the right fit.
I think you're way over your time now.
I won't be able to talk next time.
I was going to play that like Grammys music. Like, all right. Okay. So thank you everyone for your thoughtful comments. So we need a motion. So I, as the chair, I don't make the motion. So I need someone to make a motion either to recommend favorable action or to recommend unfavorable, to recommend, yeah, for the planning board to recommend favorable action, or the planning board to recommend unfavorable, or to the planning board to recommend, make a recommendation at town meeting. So does someone want to make a motion? I need either a favorable or an unfavorable. Some motion. Anyone got a motion? So we have two people that have expressed favorable opinions, two have expressed unfavorable opinions, so we just need someone to make a motion. Alyssa, do you want to make a motion? John, do you want to make a motion? I mean, someone, it's going to play out the same either way. We just need someone to make a motion. Anyone? Can I make a motion? Am I allowed to? All right, someone, based on what I've heard to date, not over today or tonight, I don't want to guess for any or speak for any, but I would ask that someone make a motion to recommend unfavorable action. Based on your comments, Peter, would you be willing to make that motion?
So moved.
Motion made to recommend unfavorable action. Can we get a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded. Okay, we're going to go roll call vote. Kelly, so the recommendation
Yes.
is for unfavorable action.
Yes.
Yes. Alyssa?
No.
Yes.
No.
Aye.
Okay. Sean, just said, so the vote is 3-2 for unfavorable action. Sean, what would you?
Favorable action.
Okay. And the reason I ask is because I think one of the things that we've gotten over the months here is a lot of opinions for and a lot of opinions against. So the official recommendation of the planning board is going to be 3-2 unfavorable action. But as people can see, it's really a 3-3 split. And so you're all going to have to come to town meeting and vote, because I think the town is very split on this, and rightfully so, because there are good things and there are bad things, and we need to you people out there need to decide. So the planning board recommendation is going to be 3-2 unfavorable, but again,
This is on both articles.
well, now we're going to do a separate one for the second one. Can I get on the map amendment article? On the map amendment, again, would require a 50% vote because it is adopting the mixed-use overlay district, which requires a 50% vote. So we'll have that statement. And can I get a motion to recommend unfavorable action?
Eitan, if I can
Yes.
interrupt, do you want to use the same statement on this article as well, or the smaller one you just made?
Do people want to use the same statement or just something saying?
Yeah, why wouldn't it be different?
Yeah, I would use the same
Okay,
statement.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Same statement. All right, can I get a motion to recommend unfavorable action?
So moved.
Second.
Kelly?
Aye.
Alyssa?
No.
John?
Yes.
No. Peter?
Aye.
Okay. 3-2 for unfavorable action. Again, thank you, everyone, for your time and consideration. Jim, did you want to say anything?
I'd be lying if I told you I wasn't saddened by this decision. But I don't want to walk out of here without acknowledging the tremendous work you guys have done. There's a lot of stuff to process. And you guys didn't leave one page unturned. You really forced us to dig deep and take a hard look at what this was about. And I really believe it's a result of your comments and the comments of many, many people. I don't know, hundreds of people maybe. It really made for a better project. And for that reason, we're very grateful. But, we're getting paid for this. And I really am so impressed. I speak for the entire development team. What are we, 100 hours into this, maybe 30-plus meetings, a lot of tough questions, and it is really remarkable, and I don't want to walk out of here without acknowledging that and echoing Eitan's comments. Last but not least, can't walk out of here without acknowledging the work of Jean. She has been patient, persistent, professional, tolerant, but always making sure that there was never any daylight between whatever you asked of us and what we were bringing to the next meeting. She was vigilant about that. And this town is very lucky to have public servants like her. She's just a pleasure to work with, very professional. Never tipped her hand, ever. And it's just a real privilege to be able to work with public servants like you, and that's how I'd like to end this. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, this is a tough vote for this board and long considered. And again, there's a good reason it's going to town meeting because it is really a close thing. And again, our planning board recommendation, whether it was for or against, is a recommendation. So please consider it because we have given it a lot of thought. I hope you weigh that, what our recommendation is, but also do your own homework and come to town meeting. Okay, so we're going to continue the public hearings until April 26th, 2022. Our planning board report is finalized. When does the select board will vote next week, right?
I believe on April 11th.
All right, so I am going to, my plan is to go to that meeting. If anybody else wants to, they may, but I will relay the board's recommendations to the select board.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, that's the select board next Monday. Basically, the chair generally goes and tells the select board what the articles are. This one, obviously, they'll have some familiarity already because we've had the joint meetings and because it's, you know, of its important town, but I'll tell them how the planning board's recommendations came out.
I also want to thank the chairman for steering this ship through challenging seas.
I thought we said no more lake. Yeah.
Nautical term, Peter, come on.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Peter. Can we get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 14th and May 15th?
That's a typo, so it's March 14th. and
March 14th and
sorry.
15th.
So moved.
Motion made for the March 14th and 15th. Seconded. Kelly.
Yes.
Alyssa.
Yes.
John. Peter.
Aye.
I vote yes. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Kelly.
Yes.
Alyssa.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Peter.
Aye.
I vote yes. Thank you, everybody.